Chapter 51. Damn Charm. Llewellyn arranged his time very full. In addition to being busy in various exciting classes, he also insisted on doing hard training every day. Not only that, he also devoted himself to the in-depth research of the two high-level soul magic cores. The two cores emitting mysterious light seemed to contain endless mysteries. They contained not only pure and powerful vitality, but also a treasure house that had not yet been opened, waiting for those who were interested to discover the secrets. As Rowling continued to explore and experiment, he gradually discovered that these cores seemed to have unimaginable power, which could help wizards strengthen their souls without any side effects. However, you can only carry it with you and slowly nurture it over time. You cannot absorb it by force, as that will only break the soul. Unless the person's soul is already broken, it will have unexpected effects. At this moment, just as Llewellyn fell into deep thought, racking his brains to figure out how to skillfully use this mysterious and powerful magic core. Suddenly, a clear, pleasant yet somewhat abrupt sound came into his ears without warning, like an extremely sharp sword, piercing through his infatuated state of meditation. Roland, the school year is about to end. Do you have any special plans or intentions? Draco's clear voice suddenly came from behind Rowling. Rowling turned around and replied with a smile, "Oh, Draco, to be honest, I don't have any specific plans yet. If everything goes well, maybe I would prefer to stay at home and rest. Or travel around the Muggle world. I'm full of curiosity about it. After all, this year has been quite busy." A trace of joy flashed in Draco's eyes, and then he said, "Hey, actually my father sent me a letter before. The letter mentioned that if we have the honor to invite you to visit Malfoy Manor, it will be a great honor for our whole family. So, are you willing to accept this invitation?" It turns out that Draco told his Lucius Malfoy everything that happened in Rowling this semester in the form of a letter. For example, the Quidditch game, the battle in the Forbidden Forest, etc. Hearing this, Rowling was slightly stunned, but he quickly adjusted his mood and regained a calm look on his face. He thought to himself, Lucius Malfoy? The man who is famous for seizing opportunities? To be honest, Rowling did have the idea of getting to know the Malfoy family, but that was just a momentary thought. Being able to become friends with Draco was enough. After all, if Voldemort really comes back to life in the future, and I don't have enough power to deal with it, I might just run away. What exactly made Lucius interested in me? Is it because of my handsomeness? It doesn't seem impossible, hee. Or is it because of my bloodline as a descendant of Gryffindor? Or was it because I, a first-year wizard who had just entered the magical world, was able to successfully cast such a profound magic as the Patronus charm? If you think about it carefully, these reasons seem to make sense. Haha, anyway, since I have nothing to do now, I might as well go to the luxurious Malfoy Manor to broaden my horizons. My pleasure, Draco. I'll be there for Malfoy Manor on time. When Draco heard Rowling's agreement, he said excitedly, "Great, Rowling, I knew you would come. This is our deep bond." Bond? Could it be that Draco has also started to follow Naruto? What on earth caused him to come up with such a ridiculous idea? Could it be that, as I thought, it was because of my unique and extraordinary personal charm? Llewellyn muttered to himself, with a barely perceptible smug look on his face. At this moment, Draco said excitedly, "Hey, I will write to my father and tell him the good news right away. He will definitely be very happy." Before he finished speaking, Draco ran away like a happy little bird. Not long after, a letter written by Draco himself and delivered urgently by Owl appeared in front of Lucius. Lucius opened the envelope with suspicion and read it word by word. When he read the key point, he couldn't help but widen his eyes, his face full of disbelief. "Dear Father, Rowling has personally promised to visit you soon, and, once again, he is deeply captivated by my unique and unrivaled charm." Looking at the words in the letter, Lucius felt a complex emotion surge in his heart. On the one hand, he was very surprised that his son Draco had such ability, on the other hand, he was confused and puzzled that his family seemed to possess some kind of magical power. Finally, Lucius let out a long sigh and murmured to himself, "Forget it, maybe my little dragon really inherited my troublesome yet irresistible charm?" But fortunately, the final ending is not bad. After that, he gently folded the letter and put it back into the envelope, his mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a relieved smile. Time flies by like a white horse passing by, just like the people who come and go around us, fleeting and difficult to retain. At the same time, the much anticipated final selection of the 4 major Hogwarts colleges also arrived on time as scheduled. However, before that, Rowling did something unexpected. He passed a message to Dumbledore. 1,000 paper cranes made of pure magic, so colorful that it was dazzling, flapped their wings and flew high from the top of the wand in Rowling's hand, like a shooting star shining with bright light, rushing straight towards Dumbledore's office. It turned out that this was the magical magic that Rowling had mastered after studying the carrier pigeon charm that Dumbledore had performed before, the ear-entering charm. By using his own unique magical aura, he can transform the thoughts and information in his mind into a special spell, which can present various forms at will. However, because he is deeply fascinated by the beautiful love and deep friendship symbolized by the 1,000 paper cranes, Llewellyn has always been fond of using this lovely image to carry the important information he wants to convey. As for the specific content of this message, it is roughly as follows: Dear Headmaster Dumbledore. I know I am awesome. But I don't want to be that awesome. So please don't let others know how awesome I am at the dinner party. Gryffindor is brave and talented. From the handsome Rowling. Chapter 52. What is delayed justice called? The dinner begins and all the young wizards from the 4 major academies gather in the auditorium. Before the dinner begins, another school year has come to an end. Now it's time to award the House Cup. The scores of each house are as follows: 4th place Gryffindor with a total score of 312 points, 3rd place, Hufflepuff with a total score of 352 points, 2nd place is Ravenclaw with a total score of 426 points, and the top of the list is Slytherin with a total score of 472 points. Rowling's eyes slowly swept across the long table belonging to Slytherin College below the stage. In an instant, it seemed as if an invisible whirlwind swept past, followed by thunderous shouts. The sound was like surging waves, one higher than the other, shaking people's eardrums. At the same time, Professor Snape, who was sitting next to him, kept clapping his hands. Draco, who was standing not far away, raised his chin proudly, with a faint smile on his lips and an undisguised smugness in his eyes. He would look at Harry Potter from time to time, as if he was silently provoking him. Looking at Harry Potter on the other side, his face was full of regret and loss, and his originally bright eyes became dull. He bit his lips tightly, trying to control his inner emotional fluctuations, but he still couldn't hide his deep frustration. In comparison, Ron's face looked extremely ugly, as if he had just eaten a pile of shit, which made people feel pity for him. As for Hermione, she still maintained her usual calm and composure, but her beautiful face seemed a little stiff at the moment, without any expression. Seeing this, Rowling secretly rejoiced in his heart. Hee, a good show is about to begin. Just wait and see, this slap in the face is really loud. Ha ha ha. However, at this moment, Dumbledore suddenly changed the subject. Well done, Slytherin House. Your performance this year is indeed worthy of praise. However, the series of events that have occurred recently cannot be ignored either. We must take them into consideration. Before he finished speaking, Professor Snape turned his head slightly, with a look of doubt on his face. Obviously, he was quite puzzled by Dumbledore's sudden remarks. At the same time, the audience suddenly exploded, and the students whispered in disgust, and the whole hall was instantly drowned in the noise. Now, I have some valuable marks to hand out. First, let's turn our attention to Miss Hermione Granger. She used her intelligence and wisdom to help others when they were in desperate situations. She cleverly turned danger into safety. Her calmness and wit in the face of danger are truly admirable. Therefore, I decided to give her a reward of 50 points. Headmaster Dumbledore's loud voice echoed in the hall. Then, Headmaster Dumbledore continued to announce, next, the second award will be given to Mr. Ron Weasley. In that thrilling wizard chess game, he showed extraordinary skills and outstanding strategic mind. He defeated a strong opponent with superb skills. For this, I have to give him 50 points. At this time, thunderous applause rang out again in the audience, and the students cast envious and congratulatory eyes on Ron. The crowd below the stage burst into warm applause, especially Percy, who was sitting in the front row. He was so excited that his face turned red. He tightly grasped the arm of the person next to him and said proudly, "Look, that's my brother, my real brother." It seemed that this honor belonged not only to Ron, but also to the entire Weasley family. However, the surprise did not end there. Headmaster Dumbledore looked at the slightly shy Harry Potter with a smile on his face. And, dear Harry Potter, the fearless courage and extraordinary courage he showed deeply moved the hearts of each of us. Therefore, I would like to give Gryffindor 60 points. Before he finished speaking, cheers surged like a tide, and the whole hall was submerged in joy. Hermione Granger jumped up excitedly, her eyes shining with joy, and shouted, "Great! Now we're tied with Slytherin." Her voice was full of pride, as if she had seen the dawn of victory. Just as everyone was immersed in joy, Headmaster Dumbledore spoke again, "Finally, I would like to mention Mr. Neville Longbottom in particular. It takes great courage to be able to firmly defend your principles and resist with all your strength when facing the enemy. But when facing friends, you can still stick to the bottom line and not follow the crowd, which requires more valuable qualities and greater courage." Based on this, I decided to add another 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. At that moment, as if time had frozen, everyone's eyes were all focused on Neville like a spotlight. His face, which had already turned red with excitement, was now as hot as if it had been roasted by fire. He was absolutely stunned. In the whole year, he had never won a single point for Gryffindor. When he thought of this, his heart felt like being hit hard by a heavy hammer. He couldn't help but think of his grandmother who was far away at home. If she knew the news, she would definitely be very proud. And his parents who were being treated at St. Mungo's Hospital for Magic, how happy would they be if they knew that he had won 10 points for Gryffindor. Whenever Neville went to visit them, even though they could not recognize their son, his mother would always kindly hand him a candy wrapped in colorful wrapping paper. Even though the walls of their home were already covered with colorful candies, the warmth and love had not diminished at all. At this moment, Neville Longbottom's heart was a mess, with all kinds of complicated emotions intertwined together, and he was immersed in self-intoxication. Draco's expression now is even worse than Ron's before. He must have eaten 2 piles of shit. Rowling thought awkwardly, this Dumbledore is really interesting. In this case, the key to winning the House Cup is actually Neville Longbottom, one of the 2 children of prophecy. Is this another way of expressing his guilt towards Neville's parents? Neville Longbottom's parents were members of the Order of the Phoenix. Maybe they are not following the White Devil who defeated Grindelwald, but the justice in their hearts. If my calculations are correct, I think the decorations here need to be changed. Gryffindor wins the House Cup, Dumbledore said, and changed the green decorations here to fiery red. He also winked in Rowling's direction. Well, it was Rowling who got fed up now. The way Dumbledore was calculating all the time still made Rowling feel inexplicably resistant, even though some people might say that Dumbledore was just trying to make up for the regret in his heart. Justice delayed was never justice for Rowling, but arrogance about being able to control other people's lives. Imagine that for the Dursley family who raised Harry Potter for 11 years, they never had to go hungry during these long years, right? After all, they sent Harry Potter to school. Even if he didn't become a wizard in the end, at least he had the opportunity to change his destiny, right? However, Dumbledore, who controlled the huge wealth of the Potter family, did not even pay a little bit of child support. At that time, Harry Potter was simply an ungrateful person. All they got was Harry's indifferent response, "I never regarded it as my real home." Perhaps Harry is thinking the same thing now. It should be noted that Harry's aunt actually knew the cruel truth behind Lily's death. When Dumbledore dropped Harry off at her doorstep, he left a letter. In such a dangerous environment, an evil wizard and his many followers were eyeing him covetously. This aunt was willing to accept Harry, the son of her sister whom she had hated since childhood and had not had any contact with for more than 10 years. "Are you training Neville again now? How annoying." Llewellyn responded with a faint smile. He had to be timid when he needed to. Rowling noticed that Professor Snape looked gloomy, and he seemed to be dissatisfied with Dumbledore's decision. However, in this joyful atmosphere, no one cared about Snape's expression. The Gryffindor students cheered and celebrated the hard-earned House Cup. They hugged each other with happy smiles on their faces. On the other hand, over in Slytherin, Draco sat in his seat with an unwilling look on his face, glaring at Harry fiercely. At this time, Dumbledore stood up and motioned for everyone to be quiet. He raised his wand and waved it gently, and the whole hall was suddenly illuminated by shining light. "Let us celebrate this wonderful moment together." Dumbledore's voice echoed in the hall. "I hope that next year, each college will have an even better performance." As the music sounded, the dinner officially began and the students enjoyed the food and fun. Chapter 53. Homecoming Surprise. After the dinner, Rowling was wandering alone in the castle of Hogwarts, and was walking towards his dormitory. Suddenly a voice called Rowling. "Oh! It's you, Harry. What's going on?" "Lorraine, I think I'm going back to my terrible aunt's house. Will you write to me during the holidays?" Looking at Harry, whose face turned slightly red and whose voice was getting lower and lower, Rowling seemed to have a bad idea. Could it be that Harry has some inexplicable bond? "Oh, Harry, in order to maintain our friendship, which is as pure as crystal and without any impurities, I feel that I really need to write you a letter. However, you also know my situation very well. I don't have any magical creatures like owls to help deliver letters, so..." Before Rowling could finish his words, Harry's big, blue, gem-like eyes seemed to be covered with a thin layer of mist. When Llewellyn saw this, he instantly changed his tone and attitude. "Actually, I was planning to buy an owl so that I could send you a letter, he he he." After all, Rowling's heart softened in the end. However, he remained hard in some aspects, such as every morning. As the only remaining descendant of the Gryffindor family, he must not follow the example of the Dumbledore family. Besides, Harry is only an 11-year-old child after all. Lack of parental love since childhood will make people more sympathetic. "Actually, our friendship doesn't have to be so crystal clear," Harry said shyly with his head down. When he looked up, Rowling was gone. Rowling returned to the dormitory and quickly packed all his luggage. He then quietly slipped out of Hogwarts Castle alone. At the castle gate, he jumped up and headed towards the dark forest. That's right, he didn't take the train. He felt scared by Harry. An 11-year-old child may be in a period of ignorance about emotions, and will have special feelings for certain people who are dependent on him or her. It will also make people who have been insecure for a long time become dependent on certain powerful people. For example, the insecure Harry and the powerful Rowling. So Llewellyn ran away overnight. "I left quietly just as I came quietly, I waved my sleeves without taking a cloud with me." When it comes to clouds, a wonderful and interesting idea instantly emerged in Llewellyn's mind. He imagined himself flying in the air like a huge bird, but this image was too lacking in style. So, a unique idea came to his mind, and Llewellyn decided to show a different bee style. He quickly mobilized the powerful water element in his body, waved his hands gently, and a cloud as white as snow appeared out of thin air. The cloud was as light and soft as a rainbow. Then, Llewellyn chanted something and cast a magical spell. He created Rainbow Mantra. This spell was created based on the principle of light refraction, which can make the surrounding light change wonderfully. As the spell was chanted, the ordinary white cloud began to emit colorful light. The 7 colors were like a beautiful rainbow, interweaving and blending together to form an amazing picture. At this moment, Llewellyn seemed to be in a dreamlike fairyland, surrounded by a dazzling and colorful cloud. He was on this gorgeous cloud, like an immortal descending to earth, exuding an otherworldly temperament. Such a scene simply raised the level to the extreme, making people fall in love with it. And Xiao Ke was also immersed in this wonderful atmosphere. "When I go to the Malfoy family manor, I must show off. Hey!" During the long flight, Llewellyn and Xiao Ke finally saw the dark forest. In the forest that was surrounded by darkness and fog all year round, Llewellyn actually felt very familiar at this moment. It turns out that mountains of gold and silver are not as good as his own dark forest. The main reason is that the magical creatures in it are too valuable, he. Llewellyn's eye oak fell from the sky and landed in his own valley. Dolly sensed that someone had touched the defensive array. He immediately flashed out. When he saw that it was his little master, he was excited and excited. "My little master, Dolly missed you so much. My little master has grown taller and become more and more handsome. Dolly, I missed you too. Are you okay here?" "Dolly is doing well, little master. Centaurs and unicorns often come here to visit the little master, and Dolly also often goes to their tribe. They also bring gifts to the little master at Christmas. The centaurs brought some healing potions that they made themselves, and the unicorns brought their shed hair and horns. They heard that wizards liked them very much, so they brought a lot. Dolly also gave them the mushrooms on behalf of the little master." "You did great, Dolly." After hearing this, Rowling became interested in the healing potion. Centaurs are naturally gifted in herbal medicine, especially the healing series. Luo Lin came to the more than 10 bottles of healing potions on the shelf in the house, picked up a bottle and smelled it, and a fresh scent of plants and trees came out. A very strong healing power. Rolling put away the 10 bottles and put them into his storage ring. Looking at the increasingly lush vegetation around the cabin, he always felt like something was missing. Suddenly, a memory came to his mind, reminding him of the secret realm of Azeroth and the Tree of Life that contained endless vitality. The precious seeds that the Tree of Life gave to Luo Lin had been lying quietly in his storage ring. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the vitality from the Tree of Life was missing here. Without hesitation, Luo Lin quickly took out the magical seed that was shining with an alluring green light and held it in his hand. As if sensing the call of its master, the seed emitted an increasingly dazzling light, like a shining emerald. Then, Luo Lin walked towards the water of life not far away without hesitation, and casually threw the seed in his hand into the air. An amazing scene happened, the seemingly tiny and fragile seed fell into the water accurately as if it had its own will. In an instant, it began to grow wildly, with its roots spreading rapidly and firmly rooted deep in the earth. At the same time, the branches stretched and expanded at an astonishing speed, and in a blink of an eye, they had surpassed the height of the valley, and continued to extend upward until they formed a huge canopy that blocked out the sun. If someone could stand high in the air and look down at this scene, and there was no magic circle blocking their vision, then what they would see would be just a majestic, magnificent, and unique giant tree. As time went by, the originally overflowing water of life was rapidly decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in just a short moment, nearly half of it had disappeared. However, just when Luo Lin thought that the Tree of Life would continue to grow indefinitely, it suddenly stopped after growing to a full 20 meters in height. At this moment, the whole tree was filled with a layer of light green light, which danced like a smart elf and finally slowly gathered at the mouth of the well. In this way, the Tree of Life and the Water of Life blended with each other and complemented each other, forming a magnificent and wonderful scene. The surrounding plants were also sprouting and growing, as if new life was about to be born. Luo Lin watched all these changes with curiosity. Could it be that these plants would become plant elves? This seems to be a good topic, but can it succeed without the infusion of soul? Luo Lin flipped his right hand, and a high-level soul magic core appeared. He threw it towards the Tree of Life, and the Tree of Life seemed to sense it and immediately stretched out a vine to grab the magic core into its body. The next second, a mysterious aura continued to surround it. Luo Lin knew that it would transform. With the blessing of the Fountain of Life, new life would surely be born in a few months or even a year or two. Chapter 54. Smuggling. Since Rolling stepped into the Muggle world, he was surprised to find that Chinatown was surprisingly similar to the world he lived in his previous life. After learning about it, he learned that there is also a vast Asian continent and many countries scattered across the world. However, despite the same region, the differences between the cultures are still slightly different. During the school year at Hogwarts, Rolling was always curious about the real situation in China today, and tried to explore it in depth many times. As expected, just like the Muggle system in the UK, the general public knew nothing about the existence of wizards. In China, Muggles give these people with magical abilities a unique title sorcerers. They rely on various wonderful skills, such as magic, array, kimandungia, spiritualism, and drawing talismans, to communicate with the power of nature and cast magical spells. But they are also little known. Most of them are scammers. However, what is slightly different from other countries is that there have always been many ancient legends about gods among the Muggle community in China. Luo Lin firmly believes that there are no real gods in this world. But after consulting and studying a lot of information, he gradually realized that the so-called gods that the Chinese people still praise today are the powerful sorcerers in ancient times who can keenly sense the power of heaven and earth. Westerners call this extraordinary power magic, while the Chinese call it spiritual power. Although the names are different, they are essentially human exploration of unknown power. It is a pity that no matter which country or region, these legends about supernatural powers are ultimately just a topic of conversation or fiction. Most Muggles still live in ordinary reality, unaware of the mysterious world hidden behind. After learning about it, Luo Lin couldn't help but feel homesick. This is his hometown, a hometown in another world. So during the year of studying at Hogwarts, Rolling had the idea of returning to China. But he never went there because of his low strength. Today, Rolling plans to go and find out more. If he can, he will not stay in the British wizarding world. Not only are there Death Eaters roaming around committing crimes, but Voldemort is about to be resurrected, and he seems to have been hated by him. It's really boring, but I'm not a coward. Of course, Rowling is not worried about the Clow cards that he has not collected. He once speculated that the Clow cards will appear around the Clow Magician. Regardless of what is reflected in Cardcaptor Sakura, Rowling has also confirmed this in the past year. This wooden house is planned to be thrown here first, and then moved as a whole when there is great magic power in the future. Llewellyn quickly and methodically packed his luggage and at the same time seriously told Duoli to keep a close eye on the house. Then, he took a deep breath and quietly set out on the road back home with Xiao Ke. Just when Rowling was looking forward to a smooth journey to China, things suddenly took an unexpected turn. When he was flying in the air and about to successfully leave the border of the British wizarding world, a group of mysterious Aurors appeared in front of him like ghosts and blocked his way. This is apparition. Where on earth did you come from, wizard? How dare you leave the country illegally and try to sneak into the magic world of other countries? One of the Aurors stared at the young Rowling with sharp eyes and asked loudly. Although they were just a child, the Aurors did not relax their vigilance. They just stopped him in a relatively gentle way and began to question him. At this moment, Llewellyn could not help but feel a chill, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He knew very well that with his current strength, he could not compete with these powerful Auro. Smuggling. I'm so sorry, I really didn't know that I couldn't do this privately. Actually, I will soon become a sophomore at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. My name is Rowling Gandalf, and this is my admission letter. In desperation, Rowling had to bite the bullet and take out the admission letter, hoping to prove his identity and purpose. When everyone knew that Rowling was a young wizard from Hogwarts, the tense expressions of the Aurors around him relaxed a little, but there were still a few people who stared at Rowling with sharp eyes. After all, it was unbelievable that a wizard who could display such powerful magic and even fly in the air claimed that he was just a freshman who had just enrolled. Naturally, they did not dare to take it lightly. As experienced Aurors, they are well aware that in some exotic countries there exists a strange magic called possession. Perhaps the little wizard standing in front of them now has some hidden danger. I already know about your situation. However, to be on the safe side, please come with us. I will contact Professor Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts. If something like this really happens, I believe she will contact us properly. Of course, if you plan to go to other magical fields, you must hold relevant documents issued by the Ministry of Magic. Now, you might as well tell your parents immediately, and we will wait for them to arrive at the Ministry of Magic. Hearing this, Llewellyn showed a trace of sadness on his face, and he whispered, I'm very sorry, my parents unfortunately passed away in the fierce battle between the mysterious man and the righteous man. Now I have lost any guardian. Well, then let's wait for Headmaster Dumbledore to bail you out. The Aurors did not find it strange. After all, there were too many young wizards like Rowling in that revolution. At this moment, Rowling, who was still immersed in the excitement of his escape, suddenly had a drastic change in his expression, replaced by full of helplessness and bitterness. In this way, he followed the Auror to the mysterious Ministry of Magic below London, England. As they gradually approached the toilet that was said to be a passage, Rowling's resistance became stronger and stronger. Oh my god! What the hell is this place? This way of passing through the toilet is simply unacceptable, it's so disgusting and ridiculous. However, despite his inner resistance, the situation was pressing and Rowling finally gritted his teeth and stepped into this strange entrance. Then, he felt dizzy, as if the whole world was turning upside down. When Llewellyn came to his senses again, he found himself in an unfamiliar environment. Looking closely, it turned out to be from a fireplace burning with a green flame. However, the flame only flickered briefly and then disappeared. It was obvious that a simple version of the Flu network was set up here, which could only be used for the transmission of personnel. The scene that greeted Rowling made him feel dazzled. The area was filled with wizards of all kinds, from different countries, wearing all kinds of colorful wizard robes, like a grand fashion show, dazzling. Looking at the magnificent fireplaces on both sides, Rowling noticed that new wizards were constantly pouring in or leaving. At this moment, Rowling followed Auror and continued to walk inside. Not long after walking, a set of imposing gates suddenly appeared in front of them. On one side of the gate, a majestic Auror stood quietly like a sculpture. Seeing Rowling approaching, the Auror nodded slightly to Rowling, asking him to take out his wand and go through the registration procedures. Chapter 55. There is a language called speechless. After entering the gate, there is a smaller lobby. There are rows of elevators leading to other floors, and in the middle is a huge pool with a huge golden statue on it. Luo Lin was shocked. This is too luxurious. It seems that I have to make a lot of gold galleons in the future. I thought I was a rich second generation, but after seeing this, I realized that I was a poor bee. Rolling was taken to the second floor, which was the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. In one of the rooms, it was written Wizard Entry and Exit Management. Rolling waited quietly inside. Just when Rolling was still daydreaming, an old man with a long beard walked in from the door. Yes, he was Dumbledore. Rolling stood up abruptly as if waking up from a dream. An embarrassment appeared on his face. He said apologetically, "Oh, I'm so sorry, respected Principal Dumbledore. I'm really sorry to have caused you so much trouble. Actually, I just wanted to go out and play for a while, he he he." Looking at the seemingly silly Rolling in front of him, Dumbledore's mind was as clear as a mirror. He knew very well that Rolling was by no means stupid, on the contrary, this guy was extremely smart and intelligent, always good at using his innocent smile to deceive simple-minded people like Harry. Whenever Rolling showed that silly smile, it meant that he was definitely trying to cover up something. Ever since the troll incident. Then, during a series of events on the Quidditch field and the incident with the incredibly powerful explosive curse, Dumbledore began to pay close attention to Rolling's every move without making a sound. However, just a few days ago, something unexpected happened to everyone. Rolling suddenly left Hogwarts without any warning, and did not choose to take conventional transportation such as the train. Even though it was a normal holiday, Dumbledore was still suspicious about this matter and could not figure out the reason. But who could have expected that today they would receive such an abrupt notification from the Ministry of Magic? Mr. Rowling Gandalf, a young wizard at Hogwarts, was suspected of illegally crossing the border. At this moment, facing Rowling's puzzling behavior, Dumbledore couldn't help but have a very strange thought in his mind. Could it be that this little brat was planning to run away? Could it be that the Quirrell incident made him realize that Voldemort was about to be resurrected? What a keen insight! Dumbledore had no doubt that this was a groundless speculation. On the contrary, what happened today made him even more certain. If Harry Potter had Rowling's help, his plan as the son of prophecy would have become even more perfect. Although Dumbledore had many plans in his mind, he always respected the decisions made by every wizard. Faced with all the situations happening before his eyes, Dumbledore did not intend to reveal the truth. Instead, he said softly, "It's okay, little Rowling. In these long 100 years, I have experienced countless ups and downs. These experiences have made me understand the preciousness of life bit by bit. If you really want to go to other countries, since you are a wizard without a guardian, you must have someone with the status of a Hogwarts professor to act as a guarantor. If you have no objection to this, then it is not a bad idea for me to be the guarantor." How could Rowling not know what Dumbledore meant when he heard this? Obviously, his true thoughts had been seen through by the wise Dumbledore, but he still responded with gratitude, "Thank you very much for your help." At this moment, even Rowling, who was always calm and composed, could not help but be moved. After Dumbledore left a letter of guarantee signed by himself, he turned and left. For the next entry and exit related matters, Rowling had to fill in the detailed information himself. After Llewellyn filled in all the information carefully, he finally completed the exit formalities smoothly. However, when he got the pass, he found that it only stated that the pass was valid for 1 month. This made Llewellyn very confused and puzzled, so he immediately asked the staff in charge of the formalities, "Why is the pass valid for only 1 month? I may need more time to handle the affairs." Facing Rowling's question, the staff patiently explained, "Sir, according to regulations, our British Ministry of Magic can only unilaterally issue a 1-month pass. If you have not completed the relevant matters within 1 month, but wish to continue to stay in the local area, you must be accepted by an authoritative organization like our Ministry of Magic, otherwise you will not be able to stay legally." After hearing this, Llewellyn suddenly understood. So that's what happened. Thinking of this, he politely thanked the staff and turned to leave the law enforcement department. At the same time, on the 9th floor of the Ministry of Magic, Dumbledore stood quietly, following Rowling's figure from afar. When he learned that Rowling was about to go to China, Dumbledore couldn't help but recall the Broken Blood Alliance on the top of the Himalayas many years ago. The painful memory surged into his mind like a tide, and he fell into deep contemplation. However, at this moment, Dumbledore noticed Rowling's back as he left, and smiled meaningfully. Llewellyn was so excited at this moment. He took the pass in his hand and used the Flu network to teleport to the British border. Finally, they left England. But facing such a vast ocean, Rowling decided to take a cruise ship from the Muggle world to China. If he flew by himself, he would be exhausted. After a lot of twists and turns, Llewellyn boarded a cargo ship. Yes, it was a cargo ship, not a cruise ship. Llewellyn wanted to enjoy himself, but he found that only this cargo ship was going to China, and this cargo ship was also the Chinese merchant who went here to buy goods and returned today. After a round of negotiations, Llewellyn said that he was a junior high school student who was very fond of China's long history, so he wanted to travel to China, but time was tight and he had to come here to ask. After a rigorous review, the captain of the cruise ship finally carefully checked the so-called relevant certificates presented by Rowling. However, all these certificates were carefully forged by Rowling, because in fact he only had an identity certificate from the Ministry of Magic, and he did not have the documents required by ordinary Muggles. Despite this, the captain showed extreme enthusiasm and friendliness, and accepted the British boy who spoke fluent Chinese without hesitation. After all, for people who have been drifting on the vast ocean for many years, meeting such a unique and energetic child is undoubtedly a rare pleasure and surprise. In the following days, Llewellyn personally experienced the arduous daily life of the crew. Facing the boundless and vast ocean, anyone would involuntarily develop a deep sense of oppression and loneliness. Especially when night falls, it is pitch black and quiet all around, and from time to time there are some inexplicable strange noises. These sounds are sometimes low, sometimes sharp, as if they are warnings or calls from some mysterious creatures, or perhaps they are just the echoes of the collision between the unfathomable undercurrents of the sea. System, did I forget to sign in at the Ministry of Magic? Is it too late to sign in now? Host, you are dreaming. The so-called sign-in is just an item that the system gathers through the magical energy of the sign-in location, or through this energy, a treasure that the system originally obtained in other worlds descends here. Now that you are far away from the sign-in range, the system cannot reward you. Llewellyn was speechless. Then why didn't you remind me? Chapter 56. Facing the Darkness. Although the water element content in this sea area is extremely high, the magic power contained in it is extremely scarce, which makes Rowling feel blocked when casting magic. However, this also made him cherish every opportunity to use magic, and constantly explore how to better exert his abilities in this special environment. At the same time, this unique experience also gave him a deeper understanding and awe of the power of nature. How are you, little guy? Are you feeling okay? The captain asked heroically. It feels pretty good. It's a different life experience. Haha, you'd better be careful tonight. We are going to pass through a rainstorm area, and there may be huge waves and bumps. The captain's expression changed from relaxed to solemn and he kept staring ahead. Looking at the expressions of the captain and other crew members, Rowling also took it seriously. Yes, Captain, your sailors are always ready, Rowling said jokingly to ease the solemn atmosphere. It was hilarious to see an 11-year-old boy become as serious as an adult and make the crew around him laugh. The sunset spread across the sky like a poem or a painting, like a colorful scroll. Llewellyn stood quietly at the bow, his eyes attracted by the beautiful scenery on the horizon. He secretly sighed in his heart that this sunset was indeed more magnificent than his small colorful auspicious clouds. One day, I will also create a world-shaking scene, purple air coming from the east for 30,000 miles, a sword shining coldly across 19 states. Llewellyn's mouth slightly raised, revealing a confident and determined smile. This idea became stronger and stronger in his heart, as if it had become the source of his motivation to pursue excellence. As the freighter continued to move forward, the view ahead gradually opened up. At this moment, a large dark cloud appeared in the distant sky, rolling and raging in the strong wind, with lightning and thunder showing an extreme visual impact. This black cloud was like a ferocious beast, waiting for Llewellyn to come with its fangs and claws bared. The scene in front of him made Llewellyn's heart tighten, but at the same time, the large expanse of gorgeous sunset behind him still exuded a warm and charming light, forming a sharp contrast with the darkness in front. This contrast made Llewellyn seem to see a portrayal of his own life. So he chose to stay away from the darkness, but on the other hand, he faced endless difficulties and pressures, which seemed to be coming to him. The constantly moving cargo ship became the direction of destiny. Llewellyn thought, is this the right way to escape from reality? Forget it, let's just take it one step at a time. Anyway, I'm not the savior. Llewellyn turned and walked into the cabin, deciding to put his worries aside for the time being. He believed that there would be a way out. The cargo ship continued to sail forward, and Llewellyn leaned against the window in the cabin, staring at the changing weather outside. Suddenly, the lights in the cabin flickered, followed by a violent shaking. Llewellyn was startled and stood up quickly. At this time, a hurried voice came from the radio, "Attention all crew members, we are in a storm, everyone be prepared." Llewellyn took a deep breath, and a look of determination flashed in his eyes. Is it really useless to escape? All the crew members returned to their cabins to avoid the storm. Only the captain and several pilots were in the wheelhouse, looking at the violent storm in front of them with solemn faces. It seemed that the storm was stronger than previously predicted. Seeing Llewellyn suddenly coming to the cabin, the captain's face became more serious. Go back quickly. This is not a place for fun. It's safer in the cabin. If fate makes people die, is there any point in hiding? It is better to face fate. Llewellyn said indifferently. The captain stared at Llewellyn and stopped talking. Instead, he watched the ship sail in without turning back. The strong wind rolled up the dark clouds. In the deep sea, the huge ship was like a small boat, pushed and shaken by the huge waves, as if it would be smashed by the sea in the next moment. The rumbling sound seemed not to be hitting the ship but everyone's heart. Suddenly, the ship tilted violently and everyone was thrown to one side. As the storm intensified, a tornado formed in the distance. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with endless despair, and the whole world seemed to be left with only silence and darkness. Only a lonely radio station was still desperately sending out distress signals, but the weak and intermittent sound was like the last words left by a dying person, making people feel extremely sad and helpless. Llewellyn sighed deeply, looking at the scene of powerful natural forces in front of him, knowing that even if he tried his best, it would be difficult to prevent the impending tragedy. However, despite the slim hope, he still decided to give it a try and try to challenge the arrangement of fate. So, he resolutely stepped out of the cabin and headed towards the unknown driving room. His face was extremely solemn, and his eyes were fixed on the front, as if he wanted to penetrate the heavy fog and find a glimmer of hope for survival. At this moment, an anxious shout suddenly came, "Little Llewellyn, go back to the cabin quickly." "What do you want to do? Go back quickly." This sudden voice brought Llewellyn, who was lost in thought, back to reality. He turned his head and looked at the captain, who was full of concern. He knew that the other party was a man with a strong sense of responsibility and courage to take responsibility. Facing the captain's concern, Llewellyn just smiled back faintly. Then, an amazing scene happened. Llewellyn's body began to emit a dazzling white light. It turned out that this was the method he found after several days of hard thinking to deal with the problem of thin magic power in this place. In this way, the thin magic power from the outside world can pass through the light emerging from the surface of the body, thereby avoiding interference with the energy in the body and preventing it from being blocked. At the same time, a pair of huge wings slowly stretched out from behind him, carrying him into the air and flying towards the sky full of dangers. Seeing this scene, everyone present was stunned. These originally staunch atheists had their worldview completely overturned at this moment. They couldn't believe that what was happening before their eyes was so real. "O key that hides the power of darkness, show me your true power and the contract you made. I command you in the name of Llewellyn." The seal is lifted. Llewellyn flew into the air, chanted a spell, and a magic array appeared. Rain obeyed my call and swallowed up the dark clouds in front of me. Then, a huge amount of magic power surged out of the cloud cards, transforming into a rain spirit. It attacked the storm, but faced with the natural power of the storm, the rain spirit also became stretched, and it could only continue to absorb the rain and fog. It was very difficult to face the cumulonimbus clouds in the sky. And there were continuous tornadoes attacking. "Wind, I need your help to stop the tornado." A cloud card was hit by Roland into a tornado in the distance. Then the wind spirit collided with it, and they were evenly matched. "Not good, Llewellyn has the aura of other cloud cards." As Xiao Ke reminded loudly, a huge lightning bolt transformed into a giant beast and attacked Llewellyn. Llewellyn saw this and secretly cried out that it was not good. He held the magic wand and chanted the spell Expecto Patronus. A huge griffin appeared from the magic wand and rushed towards the thunder beast, while the magic power in Luo Lin's body was constantly consumed. Luo Lin, the thunder beast and the natural power of wind and rain here interact with each other, making it even more powerful. Their abilities are interacting with each other. Chapter 57. Belief is poisonous. Luo Lin took out the half-full bottle of magic-boosting potion from the Forbidden Forest and drank it all in one gulp. The Patronus spell he had just cast consumed most of Luo Lin's energy. He was unable to continue using the Clow cards. Now his magic power was rapidly recovering. He knew that now he could only disperse the dark clouds in the sky. Only then would the power of the Thunder Beast and the tornado be reduced. Luo Lin Buddha used the other two Clow cards of the four elements together. Water and fire, I order you to go and disperse the dark clouds. The flame spirit rushed out violently. The temperature around seemed to become dry, and large holes appeared in the dark clouds. The water turned into a water dragon, constantly moving in the dark clouds and absorbing the water power of nature together with the rain card. Under the dual attack of water and fire, the dark clouds gradually dissipated. However, the Thunder Beast did not give up, and continued to release powerful thunder and lightning in an attempt to fight back. Luo Lin concentrated his energy, waved his magic wand, and guided the water dragon and the fire spirit to attack the dark clouds more fiercely. As time passed, the dark clouds were finally completely dispelled, and the sky became clear again. Without the support of the dark cloud power, the power of the Thunder Beast was greatly weakened. Luo Lin took the opportunity to summon the power of the wind card again, and the wind spirit rushed towards the Thunder Beast with a roar, binding it tightly. Clow card, restore your original appearance. As Rolling chanted the spell, the Re-Clow card also fell into his hands. Everyone on the boat saw such a spectacular scene, and they were all shocked and speechless, and they couldn't help but feel admiration in their hearts. At this time, Luo Lin actually felt the little bit of faith power emerging from the boat surging in his body, without complicated thoughts, only awe. Luo Lin was suddenly startled and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. He mobilized all his strength without hesitation and drove the sudden power of faith out of his body as quickly as possible. In the blink of an eye, countless colorful powers of faith that sparkled like stars floated out from Rolling's body like lively elves, and quickly gathered together, finally condensing into a colorful and magnificent rainbow sphere. You know, Luo Lin himself possesses some of the original power that can purify the rules, and because of this, he has become the unique demigod in the world today. It is also because of this special identity and ability that those mysterious powers of faith will continue to gather towards him. Gazing at the power of faith floating before his eyes, Rolling felt an indescribable powerful force of temptation emanating from it continuously. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel fear, secretly glad that he discovered and got rid of these dangerous forces in time. After all, he knew very well that among the many complex systems of gods, there were real gods born through the manifestation of rules, and there were also demigods who were cultivated through unremitting efforts. However, there is also a very special existence of false god who ascends to the throne by relying on the devout faith of believers. Although they are called false gods, the power they possess should never be underestimated. The power of faith contained extremely huge energy, which could allow the gods who absorbed it to quickly improve their strength in a short period of time. However, this power was like duckweed without roots, floating and unstable. Once the gods who grew up relying on the power of faith lost the support and faith of their believers, they would inevitably fall from the high altar and become slaves of faith, never to recover from it. Thinking of this, Luo Lin felt even more scared about the experience of almost falling into the trap of the power of faith just now. When you personally feel the power bestowed by the power of faith expanding rapidly and growing stronger like a surging tide, it is like falling into an abyss and unable to control yourself. In the European and American mythology system where Rolling lived in his previous life, a large number of gods who were of low rank and possessed weak divine powers became increasingly powerful because of the devout worship of the world. However, behind this seemingly beautiful belief lies endless danger and crisis. It is filled with all kinds of complicated emotions, greed, anger, obsession, arrogance, suspicion and other evil thoughts. They are like a thorn in the flesh, constantly corroding the sacred and noble godhood of the gods, causing these once glorious gods to gradually sink and degenerate into hateful evil gods. From then on, not only did they lose the faith foundation on which they originally relied for survival, but they also fell from the lofty altar into the dust. Even if one uses the power of purification that is said to be able to cleanse the world of all filth and evil, it is still difficult to completely eliminate these evil thoughts that are deeply rooted in the depths of one's heart. After all, the reason why this world can survive and remain relatively stable is that it relies on the two opposing yet interdependent aspects of yin and yang working together to maintain its delicate balance. As the saying goes, light is born from darkness, and darkness also breeds light. And all the power of purification is a special existence used to check and balance those evil thoughts. For Luo Lin, the goal he really needs to pursue should be the continuous improvement and breakthrough of his own strength, not to move forward with such a huge and potentially high-risk hidden danger. At this moment, the other Clow cards also returned to Luo Lin's palm, but what surprised him was that the Rain card had undergone an amazing transformation. With the help of the other 3 elemental cards, it was originally a low-level ability in the Clow cards, but after continuously absorbing this natural force, it entered the middle level. Luo Lin felt the cool power contained in the Rain card. Seeing the power of faith still coming from the boat, Luo Lin knew it was time to leave. He transformed into a cloud to cover his figure, and flew towards China with Xiao Ke. The captain watched Luo Lin go away at a high speed, and slowly came to his senses. He couldn't help but feel annoyed that he was blind. Later, the crew told the story of their encounter with the fairy to the people around them. Everyone stared at them like they were fools. But only they themselves knew that they were not stupid. Above the vast and boundless ocean, Luo Lin was like a nimble and proud seagull, soaring alone in the sky. After 2 days of arduous journey, he finally saw the outline of the long-awaited land. After successfully landing, Luo Lin realized that this place was actually the famous Magic City. This was truly a coincidence. Just as Rolling was about to take the next step, he suddenly noticed that the pass issued to him by the Ministry of Magic was emitting faint white light. At this moment, Rolling suddenly realized, it turned out that in order to more effectively manage and supervise these wizards, the magic departments of various countries have cleverly set up a magical tracking magic on the entry and exit certificates they issued. In this way, once a wizard enters the territory of another country, someone will immediately come to pick him up, thus preventing him from acting recklessly and doing evil. Not long after, 2 figures in neat uniforms holding compasses rushed towards Luo Lin with firm and powerful steps. You know, in the ancient and mysterious country of China, there are such a group of special people in every city. Specialists who are responsible for handling all kinds of bizarre and strange events. However, here, they are not called the Ministry of Magic, but a more appropriate and distinctive name, the Department of Handling Paranormal Events. You can call yourself Gandalf Roland. Chapter 58. Knowing one's heart and one's nature. How do you know my name? Rolling stared at the 2 people in front of him with suspicion. They were wearing official uniforms. If he hadn't been able to feel the faint energy fluctuations emanating from their bodies, Rolling would have probably mistaken them for ordinary humans. One of them explained, "We received relevant information from the British Ministry of Magic several days ago. It's really rare. Normally, foreign wizards rarely set foot on our territory. Therefore, when we got the information provided by our superiors, we recognized you immediately after just a quick glance. Thinking back to the last time a wizard came to our country, it seemed to be the uproar caused by the guy named Grindelwald decades ago." Another person immediately said, "Now, please show me your ID. This is just a routine official duty, and we need to conduct a routine inspection on you." Luo Lin nodded to show his understanding, and then took out the ID he carried with him and handed it over. The other party took it and checked it carefully, confirmed that it was correct, and then returned it to him and continued. "Well, no problem. According to the instructions above, you are allowed to stay here for 1 month. During this period, we will closely monitor your every move. Please strictly abide by the protection treaty formulated by the International United Department and absolutely do not commit any form of harm to ordinary people. Otherwise, you will bear the consequences at your own risk." After saying this, the staff member looked at Luo Lin sharply, as if warning him not to cross the line. "Excuse me, can I stay in China for a long time?" Luo Lin looked at the staff in front of him with a look of expectation and uneasiness, and asked softly. The staff member frowned, thought for a moment and then replied, "Personally, we don't have much objection to this. However, the superiors may not be happy to approve this matter. You know, the administration here is quite disgusted with foreign sorcerers, or what you call wizards. Especially wizards from countries like Britain, France, Japan, etc. Once upon a time, ordinary people, Muggles, from their country invaded this land. At the same time, wizards also acted recklessly and made trouble here. Therefore, the review of outsiders is extremely strict. In my opinion, it will be difficult for you, a little wizard from a foreign country, to pass the inspection. Unless you can hide in the remote and deep forests, if you are caught by our people, you will still be deported. After saying this, the staff looked at the little wizard in front of him who spoke fluent Chinese and couldn't help but give him a few more instructions. After hearing this explanation, Rowling's hopeful heart instantly fell to the bottom. He thought to himself, no wonder that old guy Dumbledore was so kind-hearted, it turns out that this old fox must have known the tricks for a long time. Thinking of this, Rowling felt a wave of frustration and helplessness in his heart. However, despite feeling extremely disappointed, Llewellyn still pulled himself together and responded politely, "Okay, thank you for informing me of this. I will definitely strictly abide by the relevant regulations." Then, he slowly turned and left, his back looking somewhat desolate and lonely. There is another important thing I want to tell you. The place we are in is the world where ordinary people live. If you hope to get involved in the realm of sorcerers, you must rush to the Tianqi mansion. Only from there can you reach your destination. According to the regulations of our country, it is strictly forbidden to show extraordinary power in front of ordinary people. I hope you can strictly follow this regulation. If you dare to use your own power without authorization, your identity will be detected as abnormal. According to the relevant information, you are here purely for sightseeing. So I wish you a pleasant journey and a happy return. Although he inevitably felt a little lost, now that he was already here, he couldn't help but want to find out the situation of his relatives in this world. After a whole day of difficult journey, with the help of mortal means of transportation, he finally arrived at the village that existed in his memories of his previous life, more than 30 years ago. When he saw with his own eyes the scene that was in stark contrast to the initial impression in his mind more than 30 years ago, he was really shocked by the huge contrast. There were sparsely scattered houses, many of which were still made of mud walls, and only a few were brick and tile structures. For someone who had traveled here in his early 20s, this scene was too unfamiliar. In this quiet little village, people used to live a dull life, but today a sudden uninvited guest. A foreign teenager broke the peace of the past. The villagers put down their work, gathered from all directions, formed a circle from a distance, and looked at the strange little guest curiously. Facing the curious eyes of the crowd, Llewellyn behaved calmly and introduced himself to everyone in fluent Chinese. His clear eyes and friendly smile made everyone present feel his sincerity and enthusiasm. When I asked these simple and kind villagers about the person I was looking for, they immediately started talking to me at once, and everyone seemed particularly warm-hearted. However, what was unexpected was that after careful inquiry and confirmation, the result was even more surprising: the person I was looking for was not here. Whether it was the names of my family members or the names of my grandparents, they seemed to have never appeared here. When I heard the news, my mind suddenly buzzed, like a bolt from the blue. I muttered to myself in disbelief, "System, what is going on? Why can't I find any trace of my family in this parallel world?" Host: time is a concept defined by humans. It does not really exist in the inherent order of the universe. When you step into this new world, everything becomes like an anomaly, full of unknowns and variables. The order of the world begins to readjust and converge, tightly binding the past and present lines that you are familiar with. In this way, you become a unique and irreplaceable existence in all worlds. Hearing this, I couldn't help but fall into deep confusion and bewilderment. It turned out that in this seemingly similar but actually completely different world, I was destined to move forward alone and explore the path of my own destiny. And those once familiar relatives and warm families may only remain deep in memory forever and become an unattainable dream. Host: please be sure to understand this clearly at this moment, you are Rowling Gandalf, not Rowling of Blue Star. Once upon a time, the land called Blue Star was the cradle of your life, but now this place can truly be regarded as your starting point. If you fail to wake up from the haze quickly, you will fall into an endless abyss of confusion and it will be difficult to escape. As these words exploded like thunder, they suddenly stirred in Llewellyn's mind. In an instant, it seemed as if the entire universe was shaken, and even his soul trembled involuntarily. However, after a painful struggle, Llewellyn finally made a decision. A hint of determination flashed in his eyes, and then he turned around resolutely and walked away with firm steps. All that was left was a quiet little village, and a group of people who were still curious and talking about what had just happened. The breeze blew gently, as if trying to soothe the remaining memories on this land. Chapter 59. An Unexpected Gain. Guanyin once observed the self, and Zhen Wei once saw my true self. The shackles of the past were just a dream, and today I know that I am myself. A few words can make you understand the mysteries, why would you need thousands of books? If a person is not burdened by his physical form, then the great Luo heaven is before his eyes. At this moment, Luo Lin let go of the obsession in his heart and no longer felt the occasional feeling of depression. Now that he was here, he must see the mystery of China. After seeing that there were no muggles nearby, Rolling took off into the air, conjuring up white clouds to cover his body. Looking at the map displayed on the pass in his hand, he fled far away in the direction of Tianqi Mansion. Half a day later, a magnificent and majestic mansion finally came into Luo Lin's sight. The mansion was like a towering mountain, giving people a sense of solemnity. The vermilion gate stood tall, like the entrance to a mysterious world. Above the gate hung a plaque shining with golden light, on which were engraved 3 powerful characters: Tianqi Mansion in a flying dragon and phoenix style, and each stroke contained endless mysteries and secrets. This mansion is not built in a bustling and noisy place, but hidden in a deep and quiet mountain forest, isolated from the world like a paradise. Here, no trace of ordinary mortals, muggles, can be seen, only many warlocks coming and going. They either carry swords or hold magic wands, all of them look solemn and have extraordinary temperament. What was even more amazing was that some sorcerers could actually fly into the sky directly on flying swords, soaring freely in the sky like birds. Some attached talismans to their legs, then took light steps and disappeared in the distance in an instant. Some sorcerers even rode various strange beasts and rushed away at lightning speed. These scenes made Luo Lin dumbfounded, and he secretly speculated in his heart, could these be the flying brooms used by Chinese sorcerers similar to those in Western magic? As he observed the surrounding environment more and more carefully, Luo Lin discovered that there were not only magical spells that could allow people to teleport, but also those seemingly ordinary magic arrays seemed to hide huge energy. When he saw someone disappear after walking into a magic array, he couldn't help but sigh. It turns out that there is such an exquisite teleportation array here. With full of curiosity and expectation, Luo Lin carefully retracted the cloud under his feet and slowly landed in front of the solemn gate. He stood there quietly, gazing at the mysterious mansion in front of him, with a strong desire to explore in his heart. Luo Lin walked in, and what came into his sight was a bustling street market, just like Diagon Alley. The items sold there were also varied, including various magical instruments, formations, elixirs, etc. Each item revealed a different heritage. Luo Lin was strolling around the market excitedly, looking around and being curious about everything. Suddenly, he was attracted by a jade bracelet on a small stall. The jade bracelet was crystal clear and emitted a faint light. The stall owner was an old man. When he saw Luo Lin was interested in the jade bracelet, he smiled and said, "Young man, you have a good eye. This is a treasure that has been passed down from our family." Luo Lin picked up the jade bracelet and examined it carefully. He felt a cool breath entering his body, which refreshed him. He asked, "Is there anything special about this jade bracelet?" The stall owner said mysteriously, "This jade bracelet has magical powers. It can bless the wearer to be safe and prosperous. However, it only recognizes the right person." Luo Lin's heart moved. He felt that this jade bracelet was destined to be with him, so he decided to buy it. "Can you buy it with gold galleons from the British wizarding world?" Rolling frowned slightly, groping around on his body with his right hand, as if looking for something, but in the end he sighed helplessly because he didn't have the currency commonly used by warlocks. The kind-faced old man narrowed his eyes slightly, was silent for a while, and then slowly said, "Well, it's possible, but some handling fees will be charged. After all, I have to go to exchange it in person. How about this, you just give me 5 gold coins." After that, he stretched out his dry hand like bark and tapped lightly on the table. At this moment, Luo Lin subconsciously prepared to take out the gold galleons from his pocket to pay the fee. However, when his eyes inadvertently swept to the side, he was suddenly attracted by a bell with a simple shape and a mysterious atmosphere. He took a closer look and immediately recognized that it was the legendary Sanking bell. Luo Lin naturally had a deep understanding and knowledge of this precious magic weapon. "Uncle, what is this bell used for?" Luo Lin asked curiously. At the same time, he couldn't help but cast his gaze towards the Sanking bell again, with an interest that was difficult to conceal in his eyes. The old man smiled and replied calmly, "This is called the Sanking bell, and it is an heirloom in our family. It is said that this bell has magical powers that can capture a person's soul and take away their vitality. It's a pity that I am old and there is no suitable descendant to inherit this family business. So, I have been thinking about finding someone who is truly destined to be with it." Hearing the words soul stealing, Luo Lin's heartbeat suddenly quickened a few beats, but he quickly regained his composure and asked indifferently, "Then, what is the so-called fate worth?" He stared into the old man's eyes, trying to catch a clue from them. The old man couldn't help but look at Luo Lin with a high regard. He could actually see the mystery in it. "Give me 15 gold coins. Then I want both of them. Do you know how to use them? I see that we have a connection, so I'll give you this book on Bagong Sanking Bell technique. It teaches you how to step and shake the Sanking bell." Rolling happily packed up the items, completed the transaction and left. The old man looked at Luo Lin's receding back and silently took out the same jade bracelet and Sanking bell from his cloth bag. It turns out that the little foreigner is so easy to fool. Luo Lin returned to his residence in high spirits, and could not wait to open the book Bagong Sanking Bell Technique and read it carefully. As time went by, he gradually mastered the use of Sanking Bell. A few days later, late at night, Luo Lin decided to try the power of the Sanking Bell himself. He came to a remote alley and followed the instructions in the book, stepping on the very simple introductory steps and shaking the Sanking Bell. Luo Lin slowly felt that the steps under his feet made the magic power in his body move with it. It was faintly echoing with the power of the stars in the starry sky. This step is worthy of the name of Tiangang. The ringing of the bell echoed in the silent night, as if carrying some mysterious power. Looking at the souls that kept gathering around, this is one of the effects of the Sanking bell, capturing souls. It's really magical. I only need to feel the weak flow of magic in my body, and I can summon dozens of ghosts. Luo Lin stopped shaking the Sanking bell, and the wandering souls around him gradually dispersed. It seems that this thing is the biggest gain of coming to China. As time goes by, Luo Lin's stay here is almost up. In the meantime, Luo Lin also submitted documents for long-term residence in China, and as expected, he was rejected for various reasons. Luo Lin sighed inwardly, knowing that he could not delay any longer. As expected, the guidance of fate will lead to the same destination. Now that he has let go of his obsession, Rolling plans to return to the magical world. Chapter 60. The Choice of Fate. Luo Lin's arrival did not cause any ripples in this ancient and orderly Chinese martial arts circle. On the contrary, this special experience brought him unexpected fruitful results, which can be said to be worthwhile. Although he lost his closest relatives in this world, this unforgettable experience also made him clear-minded and understand his true self. At this moment, Rolling has arrived at the mysterious Diagon Alley. It is true that he came here to buy an owl. In order to fulfill the promise he made to Harry. Even though he knew that the letter to Harry Potter would be obstructed and intercepted by the house elf of the Draco family, Rolling still resolutely sent the letter. Moreover, he had no intention of stopping this matter at all. After all, it would not affect Harry Potter's growth process at all. In this fantasy journey, Rolling deeply realized how powerful the power of destiny is. Even if he is an unexpected variable and tries to escape the track, the fate in the dark will still drag him into it like a shadow. Not to mention that Harry Potter himself is always trapped in the vortex of fate. However, with his appearance, it seems that some things have changed subtly. Could it be that the inherent law of fate does not fall on the shoulders of just one specific person? On the contrary, there are many different choices. And I happen to be one of them. The key lies in whether I am willing to get involved. Ding! The system detects the force of destiny pushing it. System upgrade. After the upgrade is completed, the task is released. Light will eventually dispel the haze of darkness, but darkness can also devour the bright light. At this moment, the host is facing an extremely difficult choice. Option 1, join the dark camp controlled by Voldemort, which means completely losing all the rewards bestowed by the light sequence, including the magical power of purifying the origin and the mysterious tree of life, etc. However, in return, the host will be proficient in all black magic. Option 2, stand up and do your best to wipe out the evil force of Voldemort. The reward for such a heroic act is a gift from the rules of fate, giving the host the magical ability of divination. System, what is going on? Llewellyn asked in astonishment. Host, you have been gazed upon by fate. Everything in the world cannot escape the shackles of fate, even you who come from another dimension cannot be spared. The only thing that is eternal and unchanging is your choice. The system responded solemnly. Then, can I remain neutral? Rowling asked with a glimmer of hope. Between black and white, there is indeed a chaotic grey area. However, under the solemn judgment of fate, there is only justice and evil. Either you die tragically at the hands of Voldemort, or you accept the verdict of justice. This is the choice that fate gives you. The system's voice echoed in Rowling's ears like a huge bell. I choose the second one. After feeling the powerful and purifying force, Llewellyn's heart was filled with surprise and determination. How could he easily give up such a magical power? It was like a beacon, illuminating Llewellyn's path forward and giving him hope to transcend the mundane and move towards a higher realm. Without the slightest hesitation, Llewellyn made this decision resolutely. However, for Llewellyn, who has already seen the future, the art of divination makes him feel helpless and speechless. Although he knows everything that may happen, he still cannot fully control the trajectory of his life in the face of the arrangement of fate. This feeling of powerlessness is like a heavy shackle that tightly binds him. It seems that it is impossible to flee to other countries to seek asylum. Llewellyn thought to himself. Although he was unwilling, he had to accept this cruel fact. At this moment, as he made his choice, a mysterious and vast force poured down from the sky like a beam of dazzling light, and went straight into the depths of Llewellyn's mind. In an instant, a huge amount of information poured into his consciousness like a surging tide. This information was all-encompassing, covering many fields such as astronomy and gossip. Llewellyn felt a sharp pain in his head, as if it was about to explode. But as time went by, the pain was gradually replaced by an indescribable clarity. At this moment, Llewellyn seemed to have a pair of eyes that could penetrate the fog and see the essence of everything in the world. Those once obscure knowledge and mysteries now became clear in his eyes. Not only did he have a deeper understanding of the laws of nature, he could even deduce some unknown changes based on his own perceptions. This wonderful experience made Llewellyn immersed in it and unable to extricate himself. System. Are the previous punch in and kill rewards still available? Host, don't worry. This system is still this system. It's okay, Llewellyn sighed. Llewellyn finally arrived at the owl store on the north side of the diagonal line. As soon as he entered the store, Llewellyn was attracted by the dazzling array of owls in front of him. Some of them were perched on branches, while others were flapping their wings and about to fly. They were in various shapes and lifelike. There are Snow White Hedwig, small and exquisite little grey forest owl, and majestic horned owl, etc. Each owl exudes unique charm, which makes people dazzled. However, among the many cute little guys, Llewellyn immediately fell in love with the unique African white-faced owl. It has a pair of big eyes on its round head, which reveal a kind of innocent and cute feeling, and the snow-white feathers on its face make it look particularly pure and handsome. Wow! This owl is so special, it seems to have some kind of wonderful fate with me. Llewellyn sighed in his heart. The more he looked at it, the more he felt that this African white-faced owl was very compatible with him, so he decided to take it home without hesitation. After completing the transaction, Llewellyn happily carried his new partner to his cabin. Along the way, the breeze gently brushed their faces, bringing a hint of coolness. When they returned home, before Llewellyn could stand firmly on his feet, a familiar voice came into my ears, "Little master, you are back. You must have had a great time on this trip." It turned out to be the house elf Dolly who came to greet me. Rowling smiled and replied, "Well, not bad, I got some gains. By the way, Dolly, please help me take care of this new friend." After that, he gently placed the African white-faced owl on the table and named it Ziobi. After settling everything, Rowling took a short rest and then wrote a letter to Harry Potter. The letter read, "Dear Harry, hello. I hope you have a fulfilling and happy holiday. I have good news for you. I just finished an unforgettable journey. During the trip, I was lucky enough to visit the mysterious land of China and personally experience the unique magic culture there. There is a magical spell that allows swords to fly freely in the air, and all wizards can stand on swords and fly. The scene is really amazing. I look forward to sharing more interesting experiences together when we get together next time. Your friend Luo Linear. Chapter 61. Evil Breath. After writing the letter, Rowling carefully put it into an envelope and gave it to Dolly, asking Ziobai to deliver it to Harry. After doing this, Rowling stretched himself, turned around and walked into the bedroom, ready to have a good sleep and recharge his energy for the last arrangement of this holiday, to visit Malfoy Manor. Llewellyn took a deep breath, took out his magic wand, and muttered something. A mysterious light shot out from his magic wand and rushed into the sky. The light quickly condensed into a small, exquisite, crystal-clear white paper crane, which flapped its wings and rushed into the distance as if it had life. This 1,000 paper cranes were not ordinary things, but the magic cast by Rowling the message ear spell. Before this, Rowling had collected the unique auras of Draco and other young wizards around him, and cleverly integrated them into this magical spell. In this way, when he injects the breath of a specific target into the 1,000 paper cranes, this messenger carrying important information will be able to accurately find the recipient and pass the message to the other party. At this moment, the white paper crane woven by magic was flying through the clouds at an astonishing speed, like a shining meteor across the sky. It carried Rowling's greetings to Draco and flew all the way to a distant place. At the same time, Lucius Malfoy, who was thousands of miles away, also sensed a wave of magic approaching. He raised his head, staring at the small dot in the sky that was getting closer and closer, and flew into Draco's room. The next morning, the sun had just risen and a faint blush appeared on the horizon. Rowling got up early and prepared to embark on his journey to Malfoy Manor in Wiltshire. He spread out the pair of broad wings behind him, waved them gently, and his body soared into the air like an arrow. The feeling of flying freely in the air made him feel extremely happy, as if the whole world was at his feet. During the flight, Llewellyn enjoyed the caress of the wind and the warmth of the sun. Sometimes he accelerated and sprinted, feeling the excitement brought by speed, sometimes he circled and rose, overlooking the magnificent scenery of the earth. Unconsciously, he had left the dark forest and entered a quiet and peaceful area. Here, the air was fresh and pleasant, the fields were green and lush, and everything was so beautiful. Half a day later, Rowling suddenly felt a wave of magic coming from the front. He looked closely and saw a magnificent castle standing on the plain not far away. The castle was magnificent, with elegant and gorgeous architectural style, like a fine work of art. There was no doubt that this was the famous Malfoy Manor. Rowling sped up and flew towards the castle. When he was close to the castle, he cast the message earring charm again to convey to Draco the news that he was about to arrive. Then, he began to add some cool special effects to himself. A layer of dazzling silver and golden light gradually emerged from his wings, flashing with charming light. At the same time, a group of colorful auspicious clouds slowly flowed around him, exuding an intoxicating fragrance. These strange scenes not only demonstrated Llewellyn's extraordinary magic power, but also made people's eyes shine. Not long after, Rowling saw the gate of Malfoy Castle slowly open, and 3 figures walked out. The one walking in front was Lucius Malfoy, who was wearing a black robe, tall and handsome. Behind him were his wife and Draco, who walked steadily and observed the movements around them. Suddenly they saw a small dot in the sky in the distance, which was slowly getting bigger. Draco exclaimed in surprise, "That's Rowling, this is so cool." Lucius Malfoy was also surprised. He didn't expect Rowling to come in this form. Llewellyn fell from the sky like a shining meteor. He landed steadily on the ground, and the auspicious clouds and light behind him gradually dissipated. "Mr. Rowling, Gandalf is here to visit you. Are you the owner of Malfoy Manor?" Rowling said to the blonde Lucius. "Lucius Malfoy. I've heard so much about you. Nice to meet you." Rowling turned his attention to Draco. "Long time no see, Draco." Rowling raised his lips slightly, revealing a faint smile, and greeted him softly. His deep and bright eyes sparkled with wisdom, as dazzling as the brightest stars in the night sky. A delighted smile instantly broke out on Draco's face. "Haha, Rowling, your way of appearance is really unique." After that, he couldn't wait to take a step forward, ran to Rowling as fast as the wind, and hugged him tightly with open arms. "Haha, yeah, it's only been a month since we last met, but it feels like a long time has passed." Then, Llewellyn took out a beautiful gift from his arms, a space ring carefully carved from sapphire. The ring exuded a mysterious and charming blue light, like a treasure from the deep sea, which made people fall in love with it. It slowly floated in the air and finally stopped in front of Lucius. "What is this?" Lucius widened his eyes, looking at the sapphire ring in front of him that was shining with strange light in surprise, his heart full of curiosity and anticipation. Rowling smiled and explained, "This is a space ring specially made by Gandalf's family. It can be used to store various items. It's very practical. I hope it can become a symbol of our deep friendship." After that, he turned his gaze to Draco and Lucius. Lucius took the space ring and examined it carefully. The sapphire was crystal clear, and it seemed to contain endless mysteries. When he gently touched the ring, a cool feeling spread through his fingertips and spread throughout his body, making him feel relaxed and happy. An indescribable feeling of joy surged in his heart, causing the corners of his mouth to rise involuntarily. Then, Lucius invited Rowling to step into this majestic and magnificent castle. As soon as he stepped into the spacious and bright hall, he was immediately shocked by the luxurious scene before his eyes. This place was simply a magnificent art palace. Everywhere you look, you can see a dazzling array of gold and silver utensils, precious and rare antiques, and priceless exquisite paintings. It seems that the Malfoy family is indeed deeply connected with the Muggle world. The well-trained house elves had obviously been waiting here for a long time, and they quickly welcomed Llewellyn's arrival. At the same time, the hard-working and capable little guys did not delay any time and quickly devoted themselves to the busy but orderly work. Responsible for carefully setting up the gorgeous dining table, serving delicious dishes with good looks, aroma, and flavor to the table. This is the house elf named Dobby. Rowling was looking at it at the same time. In a short while, the huge dining table, which was originally empty, was filled with all kinds of delicious food, and waves of tempting aroma filled the air. Soon after the lunch was over, Draco and Rowling discussed the fun things in the summer vacation. In the evening, Rowling said goodbye and left Malfoy Manor. The interior of Malfoy Manor was magnificently decorated, but the air was filled with a dark magical atmosphere that made Rowling feel disgusted and extremely uncomfortable. This strange and depressing atmosphere was like an invisible tentacle, tightly entwining his body and mind. Llewellyn, who possessed the power of purification, was extremely sensitive to evil forces. He could clearly feel the malice and corruption hidden in the dark. Every breath he took was like polluted air, which made him frown. Chapter 62. Escape. There is no doubt that Rowling gradually had the answer in his mind. This must be the first Horcrux created by Voldemort, the mysterious notebook. It carries a part of Voldemort's soul fragments and exudes disgusting evil energy. Thinking of this, he knew that in order to completely eliminate Voldemort, the devil, he had to destroy these Horcruxes first. Malfoy Manor was not a good opportunity to take action at the moment, so he had to wait until Lucius delivered the diary to Ginny Weasley before thinking of a solution. I don't know if Harry Potter has been taken to the Burrow by Weasley. But now Harry hasn't replied to the letter, so he is probably still at his aunt's house. Now he has made his own choice. It seems that I will be tied to Harry, but I'd better let Harry take the lead and I'll just have to hide a little. He. The night was as dark as ink, as if a huge black cloth covered the earth, covering everything in darkness. However, for Llewellyn, this endless darkness became his best cover. He was like a ghost, lightly shuttling under the moonlight, his figure looming. Finally, he arrived at Privet Drive. Standing there, he stared at the familiar window in front of him quietly, the room belonging to Harry Potter. The window that should have been open was now firmly sealed by a solid anti-theft window. It was not damaged, which meant that Harry was still in the room. Suddenly, a flying car appeared in front of them as if it fell from the sky. It's better to come at the right time than to come early. It turned out that the people who came were Ron and the twin brothers of the Weasley family, Fred and George. They rushed here in a hurry just to save their friend Harry, who was in trouble. "Are you all right, Harry?" Ron asked concernedly. "Ron, Fred, George, why are you here?" Harry was surprised. "Of course I'm here to save you. Hurry up and pack your luggage," Ron urged. Harry frowned in confusion. "But, why?" Ron quickly explained, "Don't you know? My father works in the Ministry of Magic. He told us everything when he got home. I heard that you were warned by the Ministry of Magic for performing magic in front of Muggles. I wrote you 12 letters before, but you didn't reply to any of them. I guessed you must be in trouble, so I had to get Fred and George to come and rescue you. That was magic performed by a house elf named Dobby. Harry explained. Fred carefully operated the iron hook on the car, and he skillfully pulled the iron window down slowly, and then deftly put it into the car. The whole process did not make any loud noise, just as quiet and silent as a shooting star passing quietly in the night sky. Don't worry too much about these details for now. The most urgent thing is to escape from here as soon as possible. Fred shouted anxiously in a low voice. He knew that time was running out. But my luggage is still locked in the shabby cupboard downstairs. Harry's tone was full of anxiety and helplessness. Oh, so that's how it is. It's okay, just leave it to us. We are all experts in using hairpins to unlock locks. George patted his chest and assured confidently. Okay, Ron, go and release Hedwig from the cage. George and I will go downstairs to retrieve the luggage. As soon as Fred finished speaking, he tiptoed and sneaked towards the cupboard downstairs with George without hesitation. At the same time, Ron walked quickly to the owl cage, holding the small hairpin tightly in his hand, and tried to unlock the cage door with all his concentration. Perhaps because of the joy of regaining freedom, Hedwig couldn't help but screamed loudly with excitement. However, this series of clear and melodious bird calls was like a thunderbolt that broke through the night sky, instantly waking up the sleeping Dursleys. They suddenly opened their eyes, their faces full of astonishment, and muttered to themselves, "Oops, this is not good. It must be that the extremely hateful Harry Potter is trying to escape and go to that abominable magic school." George Fred also heard the noise in the bedroom, quickly took out the luggage from the cupboard and returned to the car. "Harry, hurry up, someone is coming," George whispered. In a flash, at the critical moment, Dursley grabbed Harry Potter like a hungry tiger. With his eyes wide open, he cursed viciously, "Damn you, Harry Potter, I didn't expect you to dare to try to escape with your weird friends." At this moment, Fred, George, and Ron looked at each other, their hearts burning with anxiety, but they knew that they must not perform magic in front of Muggles, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. Seeing that the situation was becoming more and more tense, they felt helpless. Alas! It seems that I have to take action myself after all. I thought the plan was perfect and foolproof, but unexpected changes would occur. It seems that my appearance will change the fate of the people around me. Llewellyn couldn't help but shook his head and sighed. Before he finished speaking, Rowling flashed and rushed forward like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Dursley, stretched out his strong hand, and grabbed Dursley's collar tightly. Dursley was so frightened that he struggled desperately to get rid of Rowling's control. However, he was soon shocked to find that Rowling's strength was beyond imagination and as hard as steel. After a whole year of unremitting hard training, coupled with the repeated tempering of magical magic, Rowling now has amazing power. "Let me go. You despicable, disgusting monster!" Dursley's face was full of horror, and his voice was sharp and shrill, as if it could pierce people's eardrums. "Shut up, you stupid idiot!" Llewellyn's eyes were as round as copper bells, and there was a blazing anger in his eyes. He lowered his voice and scolded fiercely, "If you dare to say a word again, don't blame me for being ruthless. When the time comes, don't blame me for not reminding you." Hearing this, Dursley was struck by lightning, his whole body trembled violently, his originally bloodless face was now as pale as paper, his lips trembled uncontrollably, his legs seemed to have lost their support, he was so limp that he could hardly stand, his whole body trembled uncontrollably. At this moment, Harry, who had been silent all the time, suddenly screamed, "Rowling, how come you are here?" He widened his eyes and looked at the person in front of him in disbelief, his face full of astonishment and confusion. Llewellyn raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a mysterious smile, and then he said, "Nonsense, hey, I was guided by the stars, and I felt that you were in trouble, so I came here." After that, he shook his head pretending to be deep. At this time, Ron, who was standing by, saw this and quickly shouted, "Rowling, stop dawdling and get in the car. Percy has been looking forward to seeing you all day long." Before he finished speaking, he got into the car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving only a trail of smoke and dust in the air. Driving towards the burrow. Chapter 63. Burrow. "By the way, happy birthday, Harry," Rowling said slowly with a smile on his face and sincere emotions in his eyes. He gently raised his hand and placed his finger on an exquisite space ring. A faint light flashed, and then a beautiful birthday cake appeared in front of everyone. It turned out that this magical cake was made by Rowling using the sweet Clow cards. Fred and George on the side widened their eyes, staring at the space ring shining with mysterious light in Rowling's hand, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. Although Ron had described this treasure to them in detail, they still had doubts in their hearts. After all, such a wonderful item had never been heard of in the entire wizarding world. Now that they had witnessed it with their own eyes, the two could not help but feel curious, especially since they possessed great talent and passion for such a profound and mysterious art as alchemy. At the same time, Harry was also shocked by the sudden surprise in front of him. He stared blankly at the birthday cake in Rowling's hand that exuded an alluring aroma, with tears of emotion flashing in his eyes. After a long time, he came back to his senses and said with a slightly trembling voice, "Thank you, Luo Linear." At dawn, the car sped past like a gust of wind and finally arrived at the destination, the burrow. Before the car completely stopped, Ron, who was anxious, could no longer contain his excitement. He rushed out of the car and shouted loudly towards the house. "Percy, look who's here!" Hearing the shout, Percy, who was in the house finishing the gem given by Rowling, ran out in a hurry. When he saw Rowling standing at the door, he seemed to be instantly hit by a powerful force of joy, and his face suddenly bloomed with an ecstatic smile. "Wow, it's been a long time since we last met, Rowling. I warmly welcome you to my humble home. I am so grateful that you asked Ron to bring me the extremely precious unicorn blood. Just because of this, I earned more than 20 glittering galleons." "Haha, that's right, Luo Lin. I also got a full 20 gold galleons. It's a pity that my mother found out later, so we were left with only 10 gold galleons each." "Oh, Rowling, why don't we have such good luck?" The Weasley twin brothers, who looked like Funny, teased with winks. Their laughter attracted Mrs. Weasley, who was busy doing housework in the room. "Hey, Harry, great to see you." Mrs. Weasley greeted with a smile on her face. At the same time, her eyes fell on Rowling standing beside her. "I guess this is Rowling, right? Ron and Percy often talk about you to me. Thank you very much for taking good care of Ron in Hogwarts. Oh my, look at my memory, how could I neglect my guests so much and let you stay outside the door? Please come in quickly." She opened the door warmly and invited everyone in. "Thank you for your hospitality, Mrs. Weasley." Rowling walked into the house with a smile. Luo Lin stood there, his eyes slowly sweeping around, and he couldn't help but feel amazed. What he saw was green water and fields everywhere. It was like a beautiful painting in front of him. The 4-story building was made up of a variety of different styles and materials, making it unique. Compared with the crooked and twisted buildings in Gringotts, this one was in a completely different style. Not only that, Rowling also noticed that there were some livestock raised in the open space outside the house, eating grass and playing leisurely. There was also a large vegetable garden next to it, where a variety of fresh vegetables were planted, emitting bursts of fragrance. This pastoral life scene made Luo Lin feel particularly cordial and comfortable. In the room, there were all kinds of Muggle items and alchemical props. Then, Rowling reached out to touch the ring on his finger, saw a faint light flash, and then he took out a small bag of something from it. He took it in his hand, then walked over to Mrs. Weasley and handed it over with a smile. "Mrs. Weasley, please accept this small gift. Due to the rush of time, I was unable to prepare more thoroughly. I hope you can forgive me." Mrs. Weasley took the bag with some surprise. When she opened it, her eyes widened and her face was filled with astonishment. She quickly declined. "Oh, Rowling, this is really too precious. How can we accept it?" However, Rowling waved his hand and said sincerely, "Mrs. Weasley, please don't think so. In fact, these are just some small gifts I got from the unicorn tribe near where I live. They are not rare things to them. So please feel free to accept them." At this moment, Ron on the side suddenly interrupted, "Wow! This is the tail hair of a unicorn. I heard that it can be used to make a very powerful wand. And it's very expensive." As he spoke, his eyes sparkled with excitement. Hearing this, the Weasley twins also gathered around and looked at the bag of unicorn tail hair curiously. One of them exclaimed in surprise, "Yes. According to Mr. Ollivander, only a few of these tail hairs can be made into a high-quality wand. According to this calculation, this small bag can be sold for at least 100 gold galleons. Oh my god, such a valuable gift, we really can't accept it." Mrs. Weasley refused to accept it. Although Arthur Weiss's monthly income was more than 100 gold galleons, it was really expensive for the Weasley family who lived in the countryside and had no other income. Llewellyn smiled and said, "I know these tail hairs are valuable, but to me, your friendship is the most precious. Just consider it as a token of my appreciation to my friends." Seeing Rowling's persistence, Mrs. Weasley was deeply moved. She took Rowling's hand and said gratefully, "Thank you, Rowling. We will cherish this gift." At this time, the other children were also excitedly gathering around the bag of unicorn tail hair, talking about how to use them. "We can use it to make magic items. Or sell it to all vendor and make a fortune. No, we should keep it. Maybe it will be more useful in the future." For the Weasley family, both Arthur Weasley and the Weasley twins have very high alchemy talents. In this regard, it seems that it will be more useful in the future. Everyone was talking about it, while Llewellyn stood quietly aside. A sumptuous breakfast is already on the table. "Dear Fred, George, and Ron, come and enjoy this delicious food. After filling your stomach, go to the fields and catch those naughty goblins. They have become unusually active recently, which is really a headache. Oh, by the way, Harry and Rowling, you two have been driving all night to get here, you must be exhausted, right? How about going upstairs to the bedroom to have a good rest for a while? Only when you are fully rested can you have more energy to play." Hearing this, Harry quickly replied, "No, thank you, Mrs. Weasley, I don't feel sleepy at all. On the contrary, I'm looking forward to catching those goblins with everyone. I feel very excited." His voice revealed an irrepressible excitement. Rowling on the side quickly nodded and responded, "Yes, Mrs. Weasley, we are indeed not tired. And to be honest, I have never seen what a goblin looks like before, so I want to see it this time." After saying that, Rowling's face also showed an expression of curiosity and expectation. Chapter 64. Passion. "Oh, okay, then you guys be safe, George, Fred, and take good care of our guests." Well, and then Mrs. Weasley went to do housework. "Oh, in that case, then fine, but you must be careful. George, Fred, you have to take good care of our guests and don't let them get hurt, okay? Percy, you can go back to your room and study." After Mrs. Weasley gave the instructions, she nodded with satisfaction, then turned and walked into the house and continued to do her housework. "Oh, Mom is so biased. We also sat in the car all night," Ron muttered. "Let's go," Fred shouted excitedly. A group of people, holding various tools, walked towards the fields in a mighty procession. "Look, there's a goblin over there," Ron shouted, pointing to a small hole at the edge of the field. It was so interesting to see the little potato-like creatures running around in the field. Fred rushed over immediately, grabbed the goblin's legs with his hands and threw it far away. "Well done, Fred!" George praised. Harry and Rowling also excitedly joined the operation to capture the goblins. For a moment, the fields were filled with laughter. "Harry, Rowling, and the Weasley children, come and have lunch." Following Mrs. Weasley's loud and kind call, a group of energetic and curious little wizards reluctantly stopped their enthusiastic game of catching goblins. Rowling walked into the restaurant with a brisk pace, and his eyes were instantly attracted by the dazzling array of delicacies on the table. Although these dishes were not as luxurious and sumptuous as those of the Malfoy family, each dish revealed Mrs. Weasley's full of care and love for her family. On the table were delicacies from the traditional magical world, such as the fragrant baked pumpkin pie. At the same time, there were also many delicious foods that incorporated Muggle cooking techniques. The soup is thick and delicious, and the red tomatoes and yellow potatoes complement each other, making people salivate. In addition, the fried beef steak on the side exudes a charming aroma, and the crispy outside and tender inside taste seems to tell people its unique charm. Facing such a sumptuous lunch, Rowling could not help but feel a surge of warmth in his heart. He knew very well that this was not just an ordinary meal, but also a symbol of the unity, harmony, warmth, and happiness of the Weasley family. Here, everyone can enjoy the happy time brought by delicious food and forget all worries and troubles. At this time, Harry was also immersed in Mrs. Weasley's warm care, and often sighed that he would be very happy if he lived in such a family. After a delicious lunch, Rowling smiled and waved goodbye to Harry, Percy and the Weasley family. This journey was an unexpected one. And now, he is also on his way back to his home. "I think I should go home, Harry. Let's meet again when school starts," said Rowling. "Roland, can't you stay with me until Hogwarts starts?" Harry's eyes showed earnestness, and he seemed to really hope that Rowling could stay and accompany him through this time. Mrs. Weasley on the side also quickly interrupted, "Yes, Rowling, you can live in the same room with little Ronnie and Harry." Her kind and warm smile was irresistible, and anyone who saw it would understand that this was by no means a casual compliment. Then, George Fred added excitedly, "Yes, Rowling. We still have a lot of super interesting and novel prank ideas that we haven't had time to try, such as the fart bomb that can emit a huge stench." As he spoke, he gestured with his hands and feet, as if he couldn't wait to start implementing these plans. Before George and Fred could finish their words, they were interrupted abruptly by Mrs. Weasley's stern and urgent voice, "Oh, shut up, Fred, George. You are absolutely not allowed to lead Llewellyn astray." As she spoke, she gently patted their buttocks with her hands, as if this could calm the two naughty sons down. Rowling, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but laugh and joked, "Haha, I think we might have a chance to cooperate in the future." His eyes flickered with anticipation and excitement. Having seen the luxury of the Ministry of Magic and the magnificence of Malfoy Manor, he also wanted to own a statue made entirely of gold. At this time, Percy, who had been silent all the time, suddenly spoke up, "But Rowling, how are you going to get back? Do you have your flying broom with you? If not, why not send it to your home through the Flu network at home?" I have to admit that Percy's mind is indeed very meticulous and thoughtful, no wonder he can become the head of the grade. Hearing Percy's suggestion, Ron quickly agreed, "Yes, or let Fred and George drive their flying car to take you back." He looked at Rowling seriously, as if he really hoped that this suggestion would be adopted. Faced with such enthusiastic care and help from everyone, Rowling was filled with gratitude. He smiled and replied, "Thank you very much for your thoughtful care, Percy, Ron. But please rest assured, I believe I have a different way. Hey, please say hello to your father for me. If you are free any day, you are always welcome to visit my home." As soon as he finished speaking, a pair of huge wings shining with mysterious light slowly emerged behind Llewellyn. At the same time, colorful rays of light still lingered around his body, like a dazzling pearl. Then, Llewellyn flapped his wings and flew high, like a vigorous eagle, rushing towards the dark forest. How on earth did Rowling do all this? It's unbelievable. Ron's eyes widened, his mouth opened wide, his face full of astonishment, and he couldn't help but blurt out. His voice was slightly trembling because he was too shocked. George at the side asked thoughtfully, "Could it be that Rowling has the blood of some mysterious animal with extraordinary power flowing in his body? Otherwise, it is really hard to explain the incredible abilities he has demonstrated." At this time, Harry timidly whispered, "Actually, I just happen to have some free time right now." However, the people around him seemed to have not heard his words at all. They were all deeply attracted by Rowling's amazing magical ability. They were all dumbfounded. They were so surprised that they couldn't extricate themselves. Only Ginny, who was hiding behind Mrs. Weasley, kept her eyes on Harry from beginning to end, never leaving him for a moment. At this time, Percy noticed Harry. He patted Ron on the shoulder and reminded him, "Ron, Harry seems to have said something." Ron finally came to his senses, turned to look at Harry, and smiled apologetically. "Harry, what did you just say? I was so surprised that I didn't hear you. Do you want to visit Rowling's house together next time?" Ron asked. Rowling said before that there is a unicorn tribe near his home, it must be very interesting there. "Yes, we want to go too." The Weasley twins were instantly excited. Harry blushed slightly and nodded vigorously. "Great! Then we must discuss the time with Rowling when we return to school," Ron said excitedly. When Arthur Weasley returned home, everyone was still discussing Rowling's wings and the colorful clouds, but Ginny's eyes were always on Harry. Chapter 65, Heaven and Earth Steps. Llewellyn returned to the Valley of the Dark Forest, and his eyes were attracted by the Tree of Life in front of the cabin. In just 1 month, the tree had undergone such an amazing change. The tree, which was already full of vitality, became even more majestic, as if the mist and miasma around it were no longer so thick. Looking at the scene in front of him, Llewellyn couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation. If this trend continues, it won't be long before this Tree of Life can breed a new elf. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on his face. Then, Luo Lin turned and walked into the house, and carefully took out the yellowed ancient book Bugong Sanking Lingshu from the space ring. This book exudes an old atmosphere, and it is densely packed with records of various methods and techniques of stepping on the steps. Every page is filled with profound knowledge and mysterious patterns, which are dazzling. Luo Lin gently turned the pages of the book and read it carefully. The book introduced many different types of footwork in detail, such as the 3 stars of the canopus, the small 4 elephants and 8 diagrams, the magnificent big 4 elephants and 8 diagrams, and the unpredictable Big Dipper. These footworks each have their own characteristics, but without exception they all require precise control and superb skills to perform. However, what fascinated Luo Lin the most was the most profound of them all, the little meteor step. This step seemed ordinary, but in fact it contained endless mysteries. Each step is extremely simple and clear, but it is not easy to truly master and use it freely. Only through continuous practice and integrating one's own magic power into each step can one trigger the resonance of the power of the stars and summon powerful astrological power. Recalling the simple steps he had tried in China, Luo Lin knew that they were just the beginning. Although he could resonate with the power of the stars in the sky to a certain extent, it was almost impossible to truly bring down the power of the stars. Luo Lin took a deep breath, stared ahead with a determined look, and began to try to take the first step from the 3-star step. He concentrated his mind and tried his best to mobilize the hidden magic power in his body. Under his feet, a mysterious 5-element and 8-diagram pattern instantly emerged. When he carefully took the first step, he immediately felt the energy around him surge out like surging waves. At the same time, his muscles involuntarily tensed up, as if they were tightly bound by an invisible force. However, after some effort and adaptation, this tension gradually eased, so he resolutely took the second step. There was a loud bang, like thunder exploding in his ears, and Luo Lin felt a buzzing in his mind. At this moment, he clearly felt that an extremely powerful star force was echoing with the Bagua pattern under his feet, forming a wonderful resonance. Faced with such a shocking scene, Luo Lin did not dare to relax at all. He gritted his teeth, tried hard to calm his mind, and made up his mind to take the crucial third step. At this moment, every movement he made became extremely difficult, just like a very slow person trying to complete a difficult task. Beads of sweat kept sliding down his forehead, soaking his clothes, the muscles all over his body were shaking from the excessive effort, but Luo Lin never gave up. At that critical moment, Luo Lin relied on his tenacious perseverance and finally successfully took the third step at an extremely slow speed. In an instant, a mysterious and unfathomable star power descended from the sky, like a dazzling beam of light directly covering Luo Lin. Even Xiao Ke, who was standing aside and observing quietly, couldn't help but feel that it was difficult to resist this overwhelming pressure. After all the hardships, Luo Lin finally had a complete relaxation of his body. He bathed in this pure star power to his heart's content, feeling the warmth and nourishment it brought. What was even more surprising was that the Akan wand, which had already consumed a certain amount of magic power, now began to slowly recover its lost power. Finally, when Rolling's power was about to be exhausted, he withdrew his steps, and the vast star power disappeared. It was truly amazing. Just a seemingly ordinary 3-star step actually made Luo Lin feel unprecedented difficulties and obstacles. You know, this was not only a severe test of his magic power, but also a demanding requirement for his physical strength. If he had not been exercising tirelessly every day, practicing the Tai Chi that combines yin and yang, and trying to blend and communicate with the forces of nature, he would probably not have been able to complete this challenge successfully, and would even have been very likely to be completely crushed by this terrifying pressure. Think about the subsequent more mysterious 4-star steps and 7-star steps. They are simply unimaginable. And the legendary little meteor step is full of endless mysteries. It not only includes the amazing 36 Tiangang stars, but also the confusing 72 Desha stars. Such incredible skills, perhaps only those who are extraordinary and like immortals can truly master and display them. Facing such a vast world, Luo Lin couldn't help but feel awe. He was even more shocked by the long tradition of sorcerers in China. If he hadn't been a Chinese, he would definitely not be able to understand such profound magic. After all, those foreigners couldn't even speak Chinese well, let alone the secret art of formations. But this time, it was like breaking through and then building up again, which made his magic power and physique rebound from the bottom and actually increased. A few days later, while Luo Lin was still thinking about how to make good use of it, he saw Dolly suddenly appear in front of him, holding a letter in his hand. "My dear little master," Dolly just saw an owl hovering outside with a letter in its mouth, so she took the letter. "It must be written to my dear little master." Rowling took the envelope and saw the Hogwarts second-year admission list. Rowling opened the envelope and saw that except for one copy of Standard Spells Intermediate, all of them were Gilderoy Lockhart's books, including Breaking with a Female Ghost, Traveling with Ghouls, Holidays with Hags, Traveling with Trolls, Traveling with Vampires, Wandering with Werewolves, A Year with the Tibetan Yeti. I have to say, Lockhart is really worthy of his reputation, his face is thicker than a city wall. However, Rowling did not have any resistance to these books. After all, although the wonderful deeds described in the books were not written by Lockhart, they were real facts. However, even so, this did not affect Rowling's in-depth exploration and study of these books. Lockhart's new book launch is coming tomorrow. As if everything is destined, on the same day, Harry Potter and Weasley will go to Diagon Alley. At the same time, Voldemort's Horcrux in Lucius Malfoy's hands is about to surface. A thrilling and exciting drama is about to begin. However, Lucius Malfoy had no idea that this was Voldemort's Horcrux. Back then, when Voldemort handed him this mysterious diary, he only told him that this was the key to open the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets at Hogwarts. Who could have expected that the gears of fate would start turning at this moment? Chapter 66, Cunning Lucius. This year, Arthur Weasley took on the responsibility of investigating prohibited items of the dark arts, and the first person to bear the brunt of the investigation was Lucius Malfoy. Faced with such a severe situation, the cunning Lucius came up with a plan. He decided to secretly put the seemingly ordinary diary into Ginny Weasley's hands, trying to use her to uncover the secret of Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets, release the terrible basilisk, and then brutally kill those Muggle wizards. In this way, the blame would naturally be attributed to the Weasley family. If everything goes according to plan, Lucius will not only be able to use the Ministry of Magic to put pressure on Arthur Weasley, but also use the death of a Muggle-born wizard at Hogwarts as an excuse to force Dumbledore to abdicate. There is a high probability that the current Minister of Magic Fudge will support him behind the scenes. This will undermine Dumbledore's reputation. At the same time, he could also cleverly avoid the Ministry of Magic's strict search, which was a three-birds-with-one-stone strategy. Unfortunately, man's plans are not as good as God's plans, and Cheng Yaojin appeared halfway. Dobby, a house elf who longed for freedom. Unexpectedly, Dobby actually succeeded in the end. This undoubtedly sounded a warning to Rowling: never underestimate anyone or any creature, even if they seem insignificant. After all, who could have expected that little Dobby would become the beneficiary of this shocking conspiracy? And Lucius was not a cowardly guy, but a cunning man. The next morning, shortly after the sun rose, Rowling rushed to Diagon Alley. As expected, when he arrived, the Weasley family was walking out of the fireplace in the leaky cauldron. However, what surprised Rowling was that he did not see Harry Potter appear with them. Could it be that, as he expected, Harry Potter's fate here was indeed the same as before, and he had fallen into the dangerous Nocturne Alley? Thinking of this, Rowling could not help but quicken his pace and walked forward cautiously. Not long after, he indeed found the trace of Harry Potter. At this time, Harry Potter was in trouble, surrounded by a group of dark wizards in black robes. Rowling stood in the distance, quietly observing everything in front of him, his heart full of doubts. Why are these dark wizards so interested in Harry Potter? Moreover, they even touched Harry Potter all over, behaving in an extremely strange way. Could it be that these dark wizards all have some strange fetishes? Could they be the perverts mentioned in the legend? Just as Rowling was daydreaming, a familiar voice came into his ears. "Harry!" A deep and powerful voice sounded. "Hagrid!" It turned out that Hagrid arrived at the scene in time. Hagrid rushed forward quickly, protected Harry Potter behind him, and shouted loudly, "What do you guys want to do? Get out of here!" Faced with the burly and menacing Hagrid, the dark wizards were obviously afraid and retreated one after another. Rowling hid aside, staring at Hagrid, who suddenly appeared, thinking to himself, could this big guy be here to buy those dangerous magical creatures again? But then again, Harry Potter's luck is really good, and he always gets help from noble people at critical moments. This time, not only did he meet Hagrid, but he was also silently guarding him from a distance. "I just don't know if there are other people who are secretly watching Harry Potter besides me. After all, This young wizard is responsible for saving the entire wizarding world. Rowling did not reveal himself, but quietly followed behind Harry and Hagrid, observing their every move. "You're so dirty, Harry. How dare you sneak around in Nocturne Alley? That place is not a good place. I hope no one has seen you there, otherwise others will definitely think you are doing something shameful." Hagrid's rough and loud voice could be heard clearly even by Rowling, who was standing behind. Facing Hagrid's reproach, Harry seemed a little flustered. I just accidentally lost my way. I don't know how I got there." "So, what about you, Hagrid? Why did you appear in that place?" Hagrid scratched his head and explained, "Oh, me, I'm looking for an insecticide that can kill those nasty flesh-eating slugs. These guys are too difficult to deal with. If we can't deal with them in time, I'm afraid it will cause us a lot of trouble. So I went to Nocturne Alley to try my luck and see if I can find a suitable potion." Watching Harry Potter walk further and further away, and finally leaving Nocturne Alley, Rowling slowly stood up, and his figure, which had been hiding in the dark, gradually emerged. Without the slightest hesitation, he strode towards Flourish and Blott's bookstore, with a clear goal to buy the books he would need for school. At the same time, Harry seemed to have met someone in his destiny again. Yes, it was the clever Hermione Granger who appeared in his sight. Outside Flourish and Blott's, a huge banner was hung high, with several eye-catching characters printed on it: Lockhart's new book signing conference. Below it was a group of enthusiastic fans of Lockhart, holding Lockhart's books in their arms, their faces filled with excitement and anticipation. Obviously, Lockhart's wizard has become a highly watched focus in the wizarding world by virtue of his self-created persona and fabricated personal stories. Seeing this, Rowling's heart was moved. He thought to himself, it turns out that the star effect is also so effective in the wizarding world. In this case, why can't I just go with the flow? Perhaps, I should consider creating an agency for the wizarding world, specializing in training and launching my own golden stars. He. Thinking of this, Llewellyn felt that this idea was more feasible. After all, in his previous life, he knew many classic songs that were popular all over the world. If he could make good use of these resources. First, he would start from the music field, and after accumulating enough fame, he would make another magnificent crossover attempt entering the film industry. By then, wouldn't the gold galleons rolling in like a tide? In comparison, the small stall run by the Weasley twins really seemed a bit petty. Let them see what the real powerful force that transcends time and space is. Ha ha ha. Hello, Mrs. Green, long time no see. Hello, little Llewellyn, long time no see. You have really grown taller. All the second-grade books you need are here. Thank you, Mrs. Green. Here are the galleons. After the transaction was successfully completed, Rowling turned around and left without hesitation. As for Voldemort's Horcrux, he had already made up his mind: let Ginny keep it. If not, the terrible basilisk might not have appeared in the world at all. Only when the basilisk really appears, Harry Potter will have the opportunity to completely destroy the evil Horcrux. And he can take the sword of Gryffindor naturally. That treasure should have belonged to me. After all, I am the one and only descendant of the great Godric Gryffindor. Since it is my own, why should I give it to Dumbledore for safekeeping? At this moment, Llewellyn had already arrived at the door of Madame Malkin's robe shop. He knew that he urgently needed a few new robes to replace the old ones that were too revealing. So he walked into the shop and said loudly, "Madame Malkin, please prepare some new clothes for me." Madame Malkin looked over and instantly recognized the little wizard standing in front of her. She knew very well that this little boy was not simple. Not only was he the famous descendant of Gryffindor and a little wizard with special skills, he also possessed amazing power and noble pure blood. Facing such a distinguished guest, Madame Malkin smiled happily and quickly responded, "It is a great honor to serve you." At the same time, Harry Potter and Hermione Granger also arrived at Lockhart's new book launch. Chapter 67, My Love for Him is Pure and Without Impurities. At this moment, Rowling was standing in front of the window, looking into the distance. He was surprised to find that Lucius Malfoy and Draco were walking slowly towards Flourish and Blott's. What a coincidence, they just ran into the Weasley family who had just walked out of the bookstore. In an instant, a tense atmosphere spread out, the smell of gunpowder between the two sides became stronger and stronger, and a fierce dispute was about to break out. In this chaos, the cunning Lucius took advantage of everyone's carelessness and slipped a mysterious diary into the crucible in Ginny Weasley's hand without anyone noticing. Rowling, who was far away, saw all of this and thought to himself, this Lucius really has some talent for being a pickpocket, hee. King's Cross Station was bustling with people, but Rowling stood far away in a corner, waiting quietly. He looked ahead intently, as if expecting some important person to appear. As time passed, the departure time was approaching, but there was no sign of Harry Potter and the Weasley family members. At this moment, a rapid and noisy roar suddenly sounded. It's 10:58. Hurry up! The train is about to leave. Fred, George, Percy, hurry up and get on the train first. Ginny, don't worry, your parents are with you. Ron, you and Harry will follow soon. Hearing these voices, Llewellyn couldn't help but smile, and secretly sighed in his heart, such a famous scene is really rare. The movie shines into reality, and Llewellyn continues to observe everything happening around him with interest. In a flash, Ron and Harry were about to rush into the mysterious platform 9 3/4. At this critical moment, Rowling's elemental eye keenly captured a picture a house elf was quietly hiding inside the platform, performing some strange magic. In an instant, an invisible energy wave spread. Then, Harry and Ron seemed to be blocked by an invisible wall and crashed into it. Bang! With a dull crash, the two fell to the ground in a mess. Seeing this, Rowling, who had been serious at first, couldn't hold back any longer and burst into laughter. Harry and Ron, on the other hand, got up from the ground in shock, not understanding what was going on at all. Why can't we get in? What happened? Harry stared at Ron suspiciously, as if hoping to find the answer from the other's expression. Ron frowned, spread his hands helplessly and said, I really don't know why the entrance is closed. At this moment, Harry suddenly glanced at his watch, his face turned pale instantly, and he exclaimed, oh no! It's already 11 o'clock, and the train will leave on time. Oh my god, we actually missed the train. Hearing this news, Ron was like a deflated ball, looking extremely depressed. Harry, if we can't get through here, I'm afraid even Mom and Dad won't be able to get out. However, Harry did not give up. He said with a firm look, don't lose heart, Ron. We can wait by the car first. Ron's eyes lit up, and he shouted excitedly as if he had grasped a life-saving straw, yes. A car. Then let's just drive directly to Hogwarts. When they were about to act, Llewellyn, who was hiding in the dark, never showed up. He knew that a person's growth often requires all kinds of hardships and setbacks, which may not necessarily ensure his success, but will certainly enable him to learn valuable lessons from them. This is exactly what Rowling hopes to see Harry and Ron can continue to grow and mature, rather than relying on others to deliver food to their mouths. Only in this way can they truly become responsible and capable people. Especially Harry Potter, who has a mission. This is simply stupid and reckless. There is such a simple, convenient, safe, and reliable way. Let Hedwig send a letter to Professor McGonagall, explaining the whole story in detail, so that the problem can be solved. However, Harry and Ron chose to drive the car to catch up with the train themselves. Did they not think about the possible consequences of doing this? They thought they would be expelled if they missed the train. What's worse, their behavior was witnessed by Muggles who knew nothing about magic. This will undoubtedly put the entire magical world in great danger. Once these Muggles spread what they saw and heard, it will inevitably cause an uproar, and may even cause the balance between the magical world and the Muggle world to be completely broken. It is hard to imagine what a terrible chaos will be caused by then. Rowling saw the car slowly rise into the air and speed away. Rowling no longer paid attention to it, but found a place where no one was. He used his shadow to cover his figure, then flew into the air and drove towards the Hogwarts Express. At this time, Rowling was sitting at the long table in Hogwarts, watching the sorting ceremony of the first-year students in front of him, while Harry Potter and Ron still hadn't arrived. Dumbledore also noticed Rowling's return, smiled and winked at him. Llewellyn saw it, but pretended not to understand. Suddenly, a new student's name came into Rowling's ears, which made Rowling pay attention. Colin Creevey! Shouted the Sorting Hat. Colin took a deep breath and put on the Sorting Hat. A moment later, the Sorting Hat shouted, Gryffindor. This is a little boy holding a camera, a Harry Potter fanatic who once brought Harry a lot of trouble because he admired Harry too much. He and Ginny even wanted to set up a Harry Potter fans club. Harry was still in his second year, and spent a lot of time avoiding Lockhart and Creevy. Colin loved photography, and was attacked by a basilisk because he was a Muggle born. Fortunately, he saw the basilisk's eyes through his camera and escaped death, but was petrified. He later took a Mandrake resurrection potion and recovered. At the age of 14, he joined Dumbledore's army organized by Harry, but in everyone's eyes, Colin has always been a little cutie, a little boy who has not grown up. During the final battle of Hogwarts, Colin, who was 16 years old, was sent to the Room of Requirement because he was a minor, and was about to leave Hogwarts through a secret passage. But he secretly returned to school, bravely joined the battle, and finally sacrificed his life. He gave his young life for peace, and this battle made him a true Gryffindor hero. During this long and eventful school year, a sudden disaster befell Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The dreaded basilisk was released. This terrifying existence was like a dark cloud hanging over the campus, causing every little wizard to fall into endless fear and panic. At the same time, Harry Potter also encountered unprecedented difficulties. Just because he had the special ability to communicate with Snake's Parseltongue, he became the target of public criticism and was ruthlessly excluded and isolated by everyone. It seemed that overnight, the once respected hero turned into a monster that everyone avoided. However, in this sea of indifference and alienation, there are three people who always stick to Harry and believe in him. They are Ron, Hermione, and the seemingly ordinary Colin Creevy. In the wizarding world, all wizards flocked to establish contact with Harry, simply because of his brilliant past experiences. But for Colin, the situation was completely different. His love for Harry was pure and without any utilitarian intention. Gradually, he grew from an ignorant little boy who madly worshipped others to a brave but not very good wizard. Colin was originally just an ordinary wizard with a somewhat neurotic and timid personality, and was definitely not a warrior born with a brave and fearless temperament. However, deep in his heart, he had a strong desire to get close to Harry. It was like a bright light that illuminated his path forward, making him resolutely choose to stand on the side of justice, even though he knew that doing so might put himself in an extremely dangerous situation. The moment Colin stepped into the Gryffindor table area, the whole scene instantly became lively. All the wizards from Gryffindor stood up at the same time and welcomed him with warm applause that seemed to burst through the roof. However, there was one person whose applause was particularly outstanding, that was Rowling. The surrounding young wizards could not help but cast curious and confused glances at him. They secretly wondered why Rowling's reaction was so excited. Did he have some special connection with the new Colin? Chapter 68, Facing Death but Still Having a Chance to Survive. Llewellyn took out an exquisite magic wand from his arms and held it high. His voice was loud and firm. "Oh, the purest and most benevolent purifying power. Today, I deeply feel his pure, flawless, and extremely loyal soul. May the power of purification protect him. In the name of Llewellyn, may he be rescued whenever and wherever he is stuck in a quagmire, and escape from his predicament when he encounters suffering. Even when facing a life or death situation, may he retain a glimmer of hope." These impassioned words came from the blessing power that Llewellyn had comprehended in the Unicorn tribe. It was not difficult to cast this blessing before the rules were set. But at this moment, the situation was different. As he chanted the spell, the surging magic power in his body continuously gathered towards the wand in his hand. This blessing using his own purification power made Llewellyn feel more pressured. Fortunately, this blessing was not too complicated or difficult. After spending most of his energy, Llewellyn finally succeeded. A powerful and warm energy gushed out from the tip of the wand, like a dazzling beam of light shooting straight into the sky, and then turned into countless tiny raindrops of light that fell down, covering where Colin was. Bathed in this magical light, Colin felt that his whole body was filled with unprecedented energy and courage. At this moment, Rowling touched Colin's originally predetermined fate. According to common sense, Colin should have met the end of his life at the age of 16, but at this moment everything has quietly changed. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the sky, as if the whole world was shocked. This is exactly what the rules of fate expressed their dissatisfaction with this change, but it did not stop it. Perhaps, this is also a kind of compensation made by the rules of fate for forcibly interfering with Llewellyn's fate before. You know, Llewellyn is a person who is not bound by fate. He can completely influence the future by his own actions. However, what fate cannot tolerate is precisely this kind of blessing power. Change requires actual efforts rather than using special power to intervene. When Llewellyn raised the magic wand in his hand, the whole hall fell into silence. Everyone knew that the school had a clear rule. Young wizards were strictly prohibited from using magic during breaks unless they could ensure that they would not be discovered by the professor. But now, Rowling was so bold as to perform magic in public, which was really too abrupt. However, when Rowling was muttering to himself, everyone present couldn't help but focus their eyes on him, even Dumbledore, Snape and other professors were no exception. At this moment, everyone was staring at the changes happening below, as well as the amazing noise and strange sight coming from the sky. Without a doubt, everyone knew in their hearts that Llewellyn had succeeded. The professors and young wizards were all surprised. Could this be an ability that a wizard could master? Some young wizards opened their eyes wide, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. Some showed a hint of jealousy, others were whispering to each other. However, no matter what they felt in their hearts, all the little wizards at this moment unanimously classified Rowling as a person who should never be provoked easily. All the professors present, as well as Headmaster Dumbledore, were lost in thought, as if they were thinking about the impact of what had just happened. The most surprised and delighted person was Professor McGonagall, whose originally serious face was now filled with an expression of surprise that was difficult to conceal. This was a student from his Gryffindor college. Colin truly felt the changes in himself, and also deeply understood the meaning of what Rowling had just said. Although he was only 11 years old, such a sincere blessing made him extremely excited, as if he had discovered a new world and was full of novelty. He walked quickly to Rowling's side and said excitedly, "Thank you, my name is Colin Creevey. This is really incredible, I must master this magical magic in the future." The innocent Colin actually mistakenly thought that this was some kind of unique spell that every wizard should have. Seeing this, the other little wizards around became more curious, because they felt that Rowling and this little wizard didn't seem to know each other. Rowling sat down on a bench nearby with a slightly tired look on his face, and replied with a gentle smile, "Rowling Gandalf, please take care of me." Faced with everyone's doubts, Rowling did not explain too much, letting this wonderful scene become a mysterious experience that can only be understood and not described. When Llewellyn heard the loud noise, he felt the dissatisfaction of fate and the meaning it conveyed. It seems that such blessing power cannot be used casually. Then the sorting ceremony returned, but compared to what had just happened, no one seemed as excited anymore. The young wizards of the Weasley family all looked at each other, looking at the slightly tired Rowling, and did not ask what had just happened. Percy Weasley was secretly proud in his heart, being able to make friends with Rowling. He seemed to have incredible power. The sorting ceremony was over, and it was time for dinner. There were many delicious foods on the long table, and Rowling was also replenishing the fatigue caused by the consumption of magic power. Suddenly, Rowling saw a flying car passing by through the window of the auditorium. Harry and Ron finally arrived. Professors Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Snape all left the hall. Yes, they saw Harry Potter too. At this time, Harry and Ron drove the magical flying car, and after a thrilling flight, they finally arrived at the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry that they had been longing for. When they flew over the auditorium, they were surprised to find that it was already full of people. "Oh my God, Ron, this is bad, we are late!" Harry shouted anxiously. "Oh, don't think about it for now. How can I stop this broken car?" Ron fiddled with various control devices frantically, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. "Ron, watch out, there's a big tree ahead!" Harry suddenly reminded loudly. "Stop! Stop now!" Ron screamed in panic. However, it was too late. With a loud bang, the crazy flying car slammed into the legendary Whomping Willow and slid to the ground by inertia. The entire car body was severely deformed, as if it would fall apart at any time. "Oh, no! My wand broke into 2 pieces. This is my new wand, which I bought with the money from selling the unicorn blood that Rowan gave me." Ron looked at the broken wand in his hand, his eyes full of despair. "You're lucky that only your wand was broken. If it was your neck, I'm afraid we would both be dead," Harry said with lingering fear, with a hint of anger in his voice that was hard to conceal. At the same time, the Whomping Willow, which had been quiet, seemed to be enraged and began to wave its thick branches wildly, making bursts of crackling sounds. Each branch lashed at the car like a whip, leaving deep marks. "What on earth happened? Ron!" Harry asked with wide eyes and a puzzled look on his face. I don't know, but it looks like the Whomping Willow has gone mad. We have to run, Ron said as he grabbed the luggage and hurriedly jumped out of the car with Harry. Then, the two of them ran towards the castle recklessly, looking very embarrassed. Just as they were about to run to the castle hall, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. It turned out to be Mr. Filch, who was in charge of student discipline. Chapter 69. Road Killer Ron. Oh, let me see who these two people are. This may be the last time you stay here. Oh, you are in big trouble. He Filch sneered triumphantly. Then, with a gloomy face, he took Harry and Ron to Snape's dark and cramped office like he was escorting prisoners. Snape sat at his desk, his narrow and sharp eyes staring coldly at the two people in front of him, holding tightly in his hand a copy of the latest Daily Prophet. At least 7 extremely stupid muggles witnessed your ridiculous behavior. Look at what stupid things you have done. Don't you realize the seriousness of this matter? It's because of you two ignorant guys that the entire wizarding world was almost exposed to the muggles. Professor Snape was furious and roared in a low voice, like an enraged venomous snake. And you had the audacity to drive the flying car without permission. Even worse, you caused such serious damage to the ancient and precious Whomping Willow. I can't believe it has outlived you. Faced with Professor Snape's rebuke, Ron couldn't help but want to defend himself, but... Professor Snape, in fact, the Whomping Willow caused us more harm. However, before he could finish his words, he was rudely interrupted by Snape. Shut up! Snape roared, shaking the dust in the room. Don't try to quibble. I can tell you clearly that if you are students of Slytherin College and I have the right to decide whether you stay or go, then tonight, you will pack your bags and take the train back to where you belong. I don't think they need to go home. Dumbledore's soft but firm voice came out slowly from his mouth, like an unquestionable order. At this moment, he and Professor McGonagall appeared quietly in front of Snape's office like two mysterious phantoms. As for Gryffindor students, I think the final decision should be left to Professor McGonagall. Dumbledore's eyes, as deep as the sea, stared quietly ahead, as if he could see through everything. Tonight, I will personally write a letter to inform your respective parents, and as punishment, both of you must stay in school to participate in labor. Now it's time to return to the auditorium for dinner. Before he finished speaking, the two professors turned around and left for the auditorium. Harry and Ron were about to leave when they suddenly saw a letter that Filch had accidentally dropped at his feet. Harry picked it up and saw the words Squib Magic Use Learning Class, to Filch clearly written on the envelope. Mr. Filch, you dropped your letter. Harry politely handed the letter to Filch. Filch's cheeks flushed slightly. He took the letter quickly and nervously, and held it tightly in his hand, as if he was afraid that someone would discover the secret inside. At this moment, the dinner was coming to an end, and only the Hufflepuffs were still feasting on the long table in the entire hall. However, at this moment, Rowling quietly left Hogwarts Castle, and walked towards the Whomping Willow with firm steps. Along the way, Llewellyn keenly sensed the strong emotional fluctuations from the tree Cullo card. You know, this ancient tree, which has gone through thousands of years of vicissitudes, has already nurtured its own consciousness. The tree Clow card represents not only the spirits of all plants, but also their guardians and protectors. At this moment, Llewellyn could clearly feel the sadness and pain in the heart of this 1000-year-old tree. As a Clow magician, he felt the same way. Shortly after stepping out of the castle gate, Llewellyn saw the huge and amazing Whomping Willow from afar. Now it looked like an old man who was about to die, having lost its former vitality and energy. A large part of the branches in the middle of its body had been broken, which looked shocking. I have to admit that Ron is really a road killer. This collision was really fierce. But fortunately, there is still hope to repair it. While Rowling was thinking secretly, he suddenly found a familiar figure standing in front of the tree. So he quickly stepped forward and greeted politely, "Good evening, Professor Sprout. I didn't expect you to appear here. May I ask why you are here?" Professor Sprout turned around after hearing the voice and responded with a smile, "Good evening, Rowling. I heard Professor McGonagall mentioned that the Whomping Willow suffered extremely serious injuries, so I came here to check the situation." "So, why are you here, Rowling?" "Yes, Professor, I sensed the sadness emanating from the Whomping Willow, so I came here to investigate." Rowling responded firmly, and at the same time he pulled out the faintly glowing tricolo card from his arms. Then, without hesitation, he threw it into the air. Instantly, the tricolo card glowed brighter and brighter, like a shining star streaking across the sky. Along with this powerful force, a beautiful and powerful spirit with an emerald green body appeared. She floated in like a light fairy and rushed straight towards the Whomping Willow. Wow! What a surging plant energy! Professor Sprout on the side couldn't help but exclaimed. At this moment, the entire forest seemed to be injected with a mysterious vitality. Countless green leaves fluttered up and down around the Whomping Willow like butterflies, scattering crystal clear emerald green light spots. These wonderful lights fell accurately on the wounded parts of the Whomping Willow, just like flowers scattered by fairies. A jaw-dropping scene occurred. The Whomping Willow, which was originally scarred, began to heal itself at an astonishing speed and was full of vitality. Under the shining light of the tree elves, the Whomping Willow happily danced its slender willow branches, and its posture was just like dancing a graceful waltz with the tree elves. Such a magical, wonderful, and warm scene is so intoxicating. Professor Sprout couldn't help but feel deeply moved. Rolling, who witnessed all this, was still very excited. He knew very well that every plant in the magical world had a unique life. When the Whomping Willow was fully recovered, the tree elf flew to Luolin and said with a smile, "Thank you, Luolin. Because of your kindness and courage, I was able to save this injured tree. This is your kindness and I am equally proud." Then, the tree spirit turned into a green light and turned back into the claw cards. Luolin carefully put the claw cards away. "Professor Sprout, now that the Whomping Willow has recovered, I will be going back. Good night, Professor." "Good night, Rolling. Although I'm not in Hogwarts Castle now, I think I should give Gryffindor plus 30 points at this moment." Just as Professor Sprout finished his words, in the spacious hall in Hogwarts Castle, the scoring hourglass belonging to Gryffindor House actually increased by a full 30 points. In an instant, the originally quiet and peaceful hall was broken. A little wizard at the Gryffindor table was the first to notice this amazing change. He was so excited that he could not suppress his excitement. He quickly turned to his companion and shouted loudly, "Look! Gryffindor's hourglass has added 30 points." As if a fuse had been lit, this exclamation instantly set off the entire Gryffindor table. The other little wizards all turned their eyes to the shining hourglass, their eyes full of surprise. For a moment, cheers and screams came one after another, sweeping in like a tide. The little wizards of Gryffindor were boiling with excitement. One of the little wizards raised his arms and shouted, "Great! Gryffindor got 30 extra points at the beginning of the school year. This year's college cup must belong to us." This sentence was like a drop of water splashing into a hot oil pan, making the atmosphere even more heated. However, in stark contrast to the jubilant Gryffindor, the gloomy Slytherin house was nearby. Malfoy stared at the Gryffindor scoring hourglass after the extra points were added, and muttered, "Humph, this hourglass must be broken. How could so many points be added at once? There must be something fishy going on." At the same time, Headmaster Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall, who were standing on the podium, also keenly caught this abnormal situation. After a little induction, they understood who had added points to Gryffindor and the reasons behind it. Headmaster Dumbledore showed a barely perceptible smile on his face, then he slowly stood up and waved his hands gently, signaling everyone to be quiet. After the hall returned to calm, he said in a gentle but firm tone, "I believe that there is nothing wrong with Gryffindor's hourglass. Next, let's start singing the school song happily. I hope that all students can give full play to their voices and sing out their love and affection for the school in their favorite tunes." At this moment, Rolling and Professor Sprout, who were far away outside the school, also vaguely heard the noise coming from the direction of the auditorium. Rolling smiled awkwardly and thanked Professor Sprout, "Thank you very much, Professor. See you in the herbology class tomorrow." After that, he turned and left. Rolling said goodbye to Professor Sprout and walked quickly towards Hogwarts Castle. Suddenly a figure stopped Luolin. Chapter 70. Stumbling Hope. "Good evening, Mr. Rolling." Filch had an unnatural expression on his face, and his voice trembled slightly when he spoke, as if he was experiencing some kind of struggle in his heart. "Oh. Good evening, Mr. Filch. You see, it's still dinner time, so this can't be considered a night out, right?" Rolling responded with a smile, trying to ease the atmosphere. "Of course. Mr. Rowling, I just witnessed the magical power you displayed in the auditorium. Although I don't know magic, I understand that such a unique and powerful force is definitely not something that ordinary wizards can easily control. Filch said, looking at Rowling with awe and envy. Rowling listened to Filch's story with a suspicious look on his face, wondering in his heart, what on earth does this guy want to say? Why does he seem strange today? Then, Filch took a deep breath, mustered up the courage to continue. In fact, for a long time, I have always had a deep yearning for magic in my heart. However, alas! Maybe it's fate, or maybe Merlin didn't favor me. I wonder if you, Mr. Rowling, who possesses such extraordinary powers, are willing to lend a hand and provide some valuable help to a poor man like me. At the end of his speech, Filch's tone became more earnest, with desire and expectation gleaming in his eyes. You want to have magic? Rowling said with some doubt and some certainty. Indeed, if a squib who lives in the magic world did not have a heart longing for magic, how could he come to Hogwarts and become an ordinary administrator? And every day I have to be teased by the naughty little wizards, especially the George and Fred twins, hee. Yes, Mr. Rowling. Can you help me? Filch stared at Rowling excitedly, his voice a little excited. But his eyes were avoiding, for fear of hearing a rejection. Llewellyn pondered for a long time, and said with some certainty, I seem to have a way, but it is very dangerous. If you succeed, you will have magic, but if you fail, you may lose your life. Do you still want to try? Filch said without hesitation, I do, of course I do. Alas! Rowling sighed, heavy and long, as if carrying endless helplessness and emotion. Seeing Filch give a positive answer without hesitation, even if it meant paying the price of his life, Rowling couldn't help but feel a complex emotion. In the past life, in a world full of injustice and disparity, some people were destined to stand at the top of the pyramid from birth, enjoying superior resources and status. Others, even if they spend their entire lives fighting and struggling, can hardly reach the heights that others can easily reach. Llewellyn has personally experienced those difficult and hard days, and he knows the bitterness and pain in them. However, despite all the difficulties life has dealt him, there are always voices ringing in his ears, are you not working hard enough? Whenever he heard such doubts, Llewellyn felt extremely wronged and angry. At this moment, looking at Filch in front of him, Rowling seemed to see himself in his previous life working hard for an impossible class, and Filch did not give up just because the squib could not use magic. He knew that there were many difficulties ahead and there was almost no hope of success, but he still persisted without hesitation. This persistence and tenacity deeply touched Llewellyn. This poor guy who was regarded as a squib did not give up his dream of pursuing magic because of his own defects. But with my current magic power, there seems to be a big gap. I think I should be able to succeed with the help of the professors, said Rowling. Really? Then I'll go and ask Headmaster Dumbledore right now. He will definitely help me. He's a kind man. Without him, I wouldn't be able to get into Hogwarts. Looking at Filch talking excitedly, stumbling towards the Great Hall, Rowling felt an indescribable sadness for all the squibs. Rowling took out his wand and cast the voice transmission charm towards the hall, and the content transmitted was Principal Dumbledore, what Mr. Filch said is true. But I have to go home to get some things. I hope you can help Filch. After casting the spell, Llewellyn leaped and flew towards the dark forest. What he needed was the water from the spiritual spring and the blood of the unicorn. After the wild boar named Dolly and his family miraculously transformed from an ordinary animal into a mysterious magical creature, Rowling's desire to explore the mysteries of magic became stronger and stronger. He resolutely embarked on a journey of pursuit to explore in depth how those squibs or muggles who originally had no magical powers could possess such amazing magical powers. The human body is far more complex than animals. Rowling finally got a crucial revelation from Ollivander. Humans are born with an extraordinary ability, they can keenly perceive the subtle changes of various elements and breath in nature. This talent makes humans particularly unique and superior to other creatures. Upon further reflection, the human body is like the shaft of a magic wand, tough and stable, the blood flowing through it and the soul hidden deep inside it are like the vital core of the magic wand. It can smoothly transmit and guide the flow and transformation of magic power. What's even more amazing is that everyone's soul is essentially one of the roots of this vast world. Although the strength of their own souls may have been reduced after experiencing rounds of life and death, they still contain endless and shocking energy. At this moment, Rowling had a plan in mind, and he knew exactly what action he needed to take next. First, he planned to use the water from the spiritual spring to thoroughly cleanse Filch's body, which had been eroded by the vicissitudes of time. Secondly, find a unicorn that is willing to donate pure blood. This blood must be free of any curse power, and skillfully blend this extremely precious blood into Filch's bloodline to enhance his ability to control the transmission of magic power. Finally, it is necessary to find a core containing surging magic power and implant it into Filch's body to serve as a source of continuous supply of powerful power. Only in this way can the entire exquisite process be successfully completed. Llewellyn was flying in the air like a vigorous eagle. He used the wind cloud card to increase his speed, as if he had turned himself into a strong wind, and his speed became more and more amazing. At this moment, he was like a dazzling meteor, sprinting forward. Finally, Llewellyn arrived home. He quickly rushed into the valley and carefully took out a large jar of crystal clear spiritual spring water that exuded a mysterious light. Then, without any delay, he set out on his journey again and rushed towards the unicorn tribe like an arrow from a bow. Chapter 71. Restoring Youth. Llewellyn fell from the sky like a meteorite, instantly alerting the entire unicorn tribe. However, when they saw that it was Llewellyn, they all breathed a sigh of relief, and their tense nerves relaxed. At this moment, Nadel's tall figure quietly emerged. "Long time no see, Nadel. I'm really sorry to bother you so late at night," Rowling said apologetically. "Haha, don't say that, Rowling. We are all very happy to see you here. I wonder if there is anything you need our help with." Nadel laughed heartily. "To be honest, I came here to ask for something. I hope to get your unique and precious blood that is not affected by the curse," Rowling answered sincerely. Hearing this, Nadel nodded without hesitation, saying, "No problem. If it's your request, I will do my best to help you." Before he finished speaking, he raised his newly grown horn and gently scratched his tough skin. In an instant, a stream of silver-white blood with a faint golden tinge slowly flowed out. The blood of ordinary unicorns is just silvery white, and using Nadel's might have unexpected effects. In a flash, Llewellyn quickly took out a crystal vessel from his space ring. This is because the crystal vessel has a magical effect. It can ensure that the magic contained in it will not leak out easily. Then, Llewellyn carefully filled it with 2 liters of blood that was as dazzling as a gem. "Thank you so much, Nadel. Please take this precious recovery potion given to me by the centaurs," Rowling said sincerely and handed the potion to Nadel personally. Before he finished speaking, Rowling rushed towards Hogwarts like an arrow. However, when he returned to Hogwarts, the grand banquet had already ended. This round trip took him a full hour and a half. Although he was a little tired, Rowling did not delay at all. He immediately chanted a spell and cast a message earring spell to convey the news of his return to Dumbledore. Afterwards, he went straight to the auditorium without stopping. After all, there was no more suitable, spacious, and bright venue than this one for the important ceremony that was about to be held. After arriving at the hall, Rowling stood there silently, waiting. Not long after, a slight sound of footsteps was heard. It turned out that Dumbledore, Filch, Snape, Professor McGonagall, and all the faculty and staff of the school came here after hearing the news. Even the always serious Madame Pomfrey from the school hospital was there. Faced with such a huge scene, Rowling was dumbfounded and secretly wondered, is it really necessary to mobilize so many troops? Snape looked at Rowling's dull eyes, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and said with a hint of sarcasm, "Haha, Mr. Rowling, what you do is always so unexpected and jaw-dropping." At this moment, Professor Flitwick could no longer suppress his excitement and shouted, "Oh, dear Rowling, please don't be too surprised. You know, once this matter gets out, it will surely shock the entire wizarding world." Headmaster Dumbledore whispered, "I'm so sorry, Rowling. In my opinion, such a serious matter should be shared with the professors." Then, Professor McGonagall encouraged her in a firm tone, "I firmly believe that you can do it." After getting Professor McGonagall's affirmation, Rowling took a deep breath and said, "Professor McGonagall, I need a wide area." As soon as he finished speaking, Professor McGonagall waved her wand gently, and the place where the 4 long tables of the college were originally placed became empty in an instant. Then, Rowling carefully took out a huge water tank from his space ring, which was filled with clear and transparent spiritual spring water that exuded a mysterious atmosphere, and placed it steadily on the ground. All the professors present were shocked when they saw this. On the one hand, they were extremely curious about the ring with storage ability in Luo Lin's hand, on the other hand, they were deeply shocked by the full tank of spiritual water containing energy. Snape stepped forward impatiently, quickly scooped a small spoonful of spiritual water from the water tank and put it into his mouth. In an instant, his eyes flashed with surprise, and he said, "This is really a very rare spiritual water. If it is used to refine potions, it can at least improve the quality of all potions by a whole level." Just when Rowling was about to speak up to stop Professor Snape, it was too late. "Professor, this is specially reserved for Mr. Filch to take a bath," Rowling shouted anxiously. However, at this moment, Professor Snape, who was holding a spoon, seemed to be frozen. His eyes, which were originally cold, were now cast at Rowling coldly, as if to penetrate his soul. Then, Professor Snape, with a face full of anger, mercilessly took out a huge glass bottle from his arms, and filled it up without hesitation. Rowling felt embarrassed at the sight. He scratched his head helplessly and stammered, "Well, in that case, let Mr. Filch take a bath first." Hearing this, Professor McGonagall reacted quickly. She immediately conjured a piece of cloth to tightly surround the entire bathtub. Filch walked into the bathtub and began to enjoy this special bathing journey. At the same time, Luo Lin was not idle. He reached into his pocket and carefully took out Xiao Ke. Then, he and Xiao Ke began to draw a mysterious magic circle on the ground. The two of them worked together and cooperated well, and a huge magic circle composed of intricate patterns and countless strange runes appeared before everyone. Time passed by minute, and after about a quarter of an hour, it was finally done. Rowling nodded with satisfaction, stood up and signaled to Filch, "Okay, Mr. Filch, you can come out now." When Filch walked out of the bathtub, everyone was amazed. Because Filch looked completely new at this moment. His skin became tight and elastic, and he exuded an unprecedented youthful vitality. The original hunched and old image had disappeared, replaced by a vigorous and radiant middle-aged man. Chapter 72. When all the professors witnessed the amazing changes in Filch, bright lights flashed in their eyes at the same time. These gazes were like blazing flames, all directed at Rowling, because everyone longed to obtain that magical spiritual water after all, who doesn't want to possess the beauty of eternal youth? For the female wizards, this yearning for youth was particularly strong. They stared at the water where Filch had once soaked, now dark as ink. At this moment, Snape was secretly rejoicing in his heart. He couldn't help but feel extremely proud of his earlier decisive action of filling a whole bottle of spiritual water. At this moment, Rowling's voice rang out, "Well, let's officially begin. Mr. Filch, please move to the center of the magic circle. This process will be extremely painful, but no matter what, please grit your teeth and persevere. Principal Dumbledore will need you to provide energy for the magic circle later." Filch took a deep look at the wonderful changes in his body, and his determination became more and more firm. Although he was full of tension, he still took steady steps and walked towards the center of the magic circle. After all the preparations were completed, Rowling carefully took out his wand and whispered a mysterious and ancient spell. As he chanted, a strong magic power gradually gathered at the tip of the wand, and then continuously poured into the magic circle. In an instant, the magic circle burst into a dazzling light. This surging energy was like a rushing torrent, flowing rapidly along the intricate rune veins, and finally gathered at Filch's feet, forming a dazzling sea of light. "Principal Dumbledore, we may begin." As Rowling finished his words, the whole scene became tense. Principal Dumbledore stretched out his right hand with a solemn expression, tightly grasping the legendary Elder Wand. After taking a deep breath, he pointed his wand at the center of the formation, continuously injecting powerful and mysterious magic power into it. At this moment, Filch, who had been lying quietly on the ground, began to float up slowly. Rowling was delighted when he saw this, because he knew that this was the critical moment. So, without hesitation, he quickly took out the large bottle of unicorn blood shining with brilliant golden light, and carefully used the wand in his hand to guide the precious blood little by little to gather towards Filch's body. When the unicorn blood came into contact with Filch's skin, a wonderful chemical reaction seemed to occur. It quickly penetrated into Filch's body like a spirit, blending and merging with Filch's own blood. In the blink of an eye, the dirty impurities in Filch's blood gradually turned into wisps of black smoke, which rose up and gradually dissipated into the invisible. When the last drop of unicorn blood was exhausted, Rowling did not dare to delay at all and immediately took out a mid-level magic core that he had prepared long ago from his space ring. This magic core flashed with dazzling light, containing endless power. Rowling gently waved his wand, causing the magic core to fly steadily towards Filch. As soon as it entered the range of the magic circle, the magic core immediately burst out with an astonishing huge energy, like a surging torrent, madly washing over Filch's body. At this moment, Filch was suffering from unprecedented pain, but he gritted his teeth and persevered, because he was clearly aware that if he could not survive this test, all his efforts would be in vain. As Filch let out a series of deep roars, his body trembled continuously, as if he might collapse at any time. However, despite the extreme pain, Filch still firmly adhered to his inner beliefs and bravely faced this life and death challenge. All the professors looked worried and nervous. Time passed by minute. Half an hour later, the powerful and heart-pounding energy continued to hit Filch like a surging torrent. At this moment, Filch's voice seemed to be gradually swallowed up by this violent force and was becoming weaker and weaker. Rowling's heart tightened, and he secretly cried out, "Not good." He was extremely anxious, and shouted at the top of his voice, "Mr. Filch, you must be reserved. Think about how much pain and trouble those naughty little wizards have brought you. Recall the scene when George and Fred threw the huge smelly Easter egg at you. Think again about the wizards' indifference and disregard for you. We are about to succeed, please grit your teeth and persevere." All the professors were moved when they heard Rowling's words. Professor McGonagall frowned slightly, "Naughty George Fred." As if influenced by Llewellyn's words, Filch's originally vague consciousness gradually woke up. At the same time, an incomparable strong will emerged from his body, as hot and dazzling as a burning flame. Then, Filch began to actively absorb the energy from the magic circle. He was fully focused and gave it his all. Every cell in his body was filled with desire for magic. Rowling was overjoyed when he saw this. He knew that he had taken a crucial step. So he waved his wand without hesitation, muttering something. A dazzling light suddenly lit up and flew straight towards Filch. The magic core containing power was firmly integrated into Filch's body. Success! Rowling could hardly contain his inner joy and shouted loudly. At this moment, Filch slowly landed on the ground. At the same time, Headmaster Dumbledore also stopped continuously inputting energy. With the interruption of energy supply, the formation that was originally shining with mysterious light seemed to have lost its support and instantly dissipated without a trace. "How do you feel, Mr. Filch?" Rowling asked impatiently, his words filled with unconcealable excitement. "I feel great, thank you so much, Rowling," Filch said with an ecstatic smile on his face, and quickly took out a wand that he had carefully prepared. He bought this wand specifically for the training class. He just whispered, "Clean it up." In an instant, a magical power blew across Filch's body like a spring breeze, and in the blink of an eye, all the stains on his body disappeared. Looking at Filch casting the spell so skillfully and naturally, everyone couldn't help but wonder how many times he had practiced it in private. For a moment, all the professors present applauded at the same time. They gave warm applause to Llewellyn to express their admiration and appreciation for him. Chapter 73. You deserve the Order of Merlin. It's incredible. Rowling, you've once again allowed us to witness the birth of a miracle. Headmaster Dumbledore did not hesitate to praise him, his eyes full of affirmation and commendation for Rowling. Yes, this incident is bound to cause a sensation in the entire wizarding world. Professor Flitwick's face was full of astonishment, with a hint of amazement in his tone. "I have to say, you did an excellent job." Snape did not hesitate to praise him, and his usually stern face now revealed a barely perceptible smile. "I am so proud of you, Rowling. I dare say that based on this achievement, you are definitely worthy of being awarded the Order of Merlin, second class." Professor McGonagall could not hide her excitement, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. "Your future must be full of infinite possibilities and is destined to be extraordinary," Professor Sprout said softly with a smile, his eyes full of expectations and admiration for Rowling. At this moment, Llewellyn was completely immersed in extreme joy, and could hardly suppress his surging emotions. However, despite his overwhelming joy, he still tried to remain calm and responded calmly, "Thank you professors for your recognition and praise. But you know, it is not easy to achieve such results, and the difficulties are beyond the imagination of outsiders. Therefore, I implore all professors to keep this secret strictly." Hearing this, all the professors present were shocked. They looked at the 12-year-old boy in front of them, Luo Lin, in disbelief. It is really admirable that he has such a calm and resolute mentality at such a young age. Great, Rolling. Being able to remain humble and calm is the quality that a true Gryffindor should have. Professor McGonagall's face was full of pride. She couldn't help but feel proud that her college could cultivate such an outstanding student. Well, dear professors and dear Rowling and Filch, I think it's time to go back and have a good rest. Dumbledore's eyes swept across everyone, and when they finally landed on Rowling, there was undisguised admiration in his eyes, and he smiled and spoke. Well, professors, may you have a peaceful and beautiful night. Mr. Filch, good night and sweet dreams. After Rowling responded politely, he turned around without hesitation and walked towards the dormitory with brisk steps. As soon as he returned to the dormitory, Luo Lin fell on the bed like a deflated ball and fell asleep instantly. He was really exhausted after the whole day. The next morning, before daybreak, Luo Lin had already woken up. He got up quickly and started his daily exercise as usual. After all, a strong body is also very important for a magician. The first class of the day was the much-anticipated herbal medicine class. After Luo Lin had a hearty breakfast, he headed to the herbal medicine class with great interest. This special classroom is located in a spacious and bright sunroom outside the auditorium. When you walk into it, you can see all kinds of strange flowers and magical plants scattered in an orderly manner. The whole scene is like being in a mysterious and beautiful tropical rainforest. Even the air is much fresher. At this moment, the natural affinity in Luo Lin's body was continuously emitting a friendly atmosphere. Even the spiritual magical plants around him were keenly aware of this kindness. They took the initiative to approach Luo Lin, as if they wanted to establish a closer connection with this special boy. Luo Lin felt all of this. He closed his eyes, as if he could listen to the whispers of the plants. Suddenly, he felt a faint wave of magic coming from an inconspicuous blue flower. He squatted down and observed carefully, and found that the stamens of the blue flowers were actually shining with a faint light. Luo Lin carefully stretched his hand to the stamens, and when his fingertips touched the leaves, a subtle but pure healing power spread throughout his body like an electric current. He opened his eyes in surprise and looked at the little blue flower, feeling infinite curiosity in his heart. Suddenly, a gentle voice came into his ears, "Oh! Good morning, Rowling." Rowling turned around and saw Professor Sprout walking towards him with a friendly smile on his face. "Good morning, Professor Sprout," Rowling responded, pointing to the little flower in front of him that was emitting a faint blue light. "I've just been observing this little blue flower, and it seems to contain a faint but extremely pure healing power." "Oh? Really?" Professor Sprout walked closer and looked at the flower carefully, his eyes flashing with surprise. "It seems that my experiment has really paid off. This flower is called Yalan Mengling, but you can also simply call it Yuman. Last night, I evenly sprinkled the mysterious spiritual water that Filch had soaked in throughout the herb room. Unexpectedly, most of the herbs grew exceptionally well, and many magical plants underwent amazing transformations. And this Yuman is the best among them. Its original healing power was rather mixed, but after this change, it has become so pure. Although it is still relatively weak at present, as long as it is cultivated in large quantities, it will surely be able to produce a healing potion of excellent quality. I must keep it away carefully and never let those naughty little wizards break it." Professor Sprout carefully reached out her hand and moved Dream back to her special breeding room. At this time, little wizards came to the classroom one after another. "Rolling! Rolling!" A loud and urgent voice called out. Rowling looked over and saw three figures approaching from a distance. They were the three famous Gryffindor students Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger. They were walking towards him quickly, with warm smiles on their faces. "Good morning, Luo Linier," the three said in unison. "Good morning, Harry, Ron, and Hermione," Rowling responded with a smile. He looked at the three good friends in front of him, and a warm feeling surged in his heart. "Roland, you're here really early. When Ron and I arrived at the hall yesterday, we couldn't find you anywhere. Later we asked Hermione, and she told us that you seemed to have gone to the bathroom. But we've been waiting here, and we didn't see any sign of you until the end of the dinner," Harry said impatiently, his words coming out like a machine gun and he couldn't stop at all. After hearing this, Rowling couldn't help but burst out laughing. Ha ha ha, I'm so sorry, Harry. Actually, I did have some important things to deal with last night, so I left early. But then again, why did you two come so late? He deliberately pretended to be puzzled, his eyes scanning back and forth between Harry and Ron. Chapter 74, A Group of Fanatics. Ron shook his head helplessly and explained with a look of annoyance, "Oh, don't mention it, we encountered some unexpected troubles yesterday. That damn platform 9 3/4 was closed. Harry said it was a house elf named Dobby who did it. We had no choice but to drive the flying car to the school." At this point, he seemed to remember the thrilling scene at that time and couldn't help shuddering. "Oh? Is that so? I see, I saw in the Daily Prophet this morning that the car that was seen flying in the air by Muggles was actually driven by you. This is really unexpected. Harry, Ron, why don't you send Hedwig to deliver a letter to Professor McGonagall? I'm sure she will have a way to properly solve the problem." Rowling asked as if he suddenly realized something. "That's right, Harry and Ron, you really acted too rashly this time. If you continue like this, Gryffindor House will probably lose all its points because of you two." Hermione complained angrily. "We've realized our mistake. We really didn't expect things to develop to such a serious level. Just yesterday, Ron and I almost ran into that terrifying Whomping Willow and were almost killed by it." Thinking back to it now, Harry still had lingering fears, and there was a hint of panic in his voice. Hearing this, Rowling almost couldn't help laughing out loud. "I have to admit that Harry Potter does have some talent for humor. Being beaten to death by the Whomping Willow, sounds quite rhyming. Maybe we can consider letting him become a rapper." Rowling thought to himself. "Oh my god! Look at my brand new wand that I just bought. It broke just like that. I am so sad. I have already sold the old wand I used before. What's worse is that even my dad's precious flying car ran away by itself. If Mom and Dad knew about this, they would definitely beat me to death." Ron cried with regret and fear on his face. "Professor McGonagall told us to arrive at the professor's offices late every night to help with their work as a punishment for us," Harry said weakly. At this moment, a harsh and sarcastic voice suddenly sounded, "Hey, who is this?" "Oh, it turns out to be the famous Mr. Harrypot. You were not sent home on the Hogwarts Express. You are so brave and fearless, driving the flying car around and rushing around. And you, Weasley, when my father finds out about this, he will definitely investigate your father thoroughly. Haha. Oh. Good morning, Rowling." The person who spoke was Draco with a smug look on his face. Hearing this sarcasm, Harry Potter and Ron stared at Draco at the same time, their eyes full of resentment. "Good morning, Draco." Rowling replied with a smile. "Dear little wizards, please return to your seats." With Professor Sprout's shout, the herbology class officially began. The sunlight poured into the spacious and solemn auditorium through the glass windows. At noon, all the little wizards gathered here as usual to enjoy a sumptuous lunch. Rowling was sitting at the long table, enjoying the delicious food with gusto. While eating, he was paying attention to the movements of his classmates around him. Ron was seen frantically fiddling with a roll of magic tape, trying to tie up his broken wand tightly. Poor little Ronnie. Rowling seemed to feel helpless about the monotonous extracurricular life. After all, in Hogwarts, there were no mobile phones to play games or watch videos, and no TV to watch exciting programs to kill time. Thinking of this, Rowling couldn't help but wonder, it seems I have to think carefully about how to develop Hogwarts' entertainment industry. At this moment, an excited voice was heard, "Hello, Harry." It turned out that Colin was running towards Harry with a camera in his hand, and quickly pressed the shutter. With a click, a photo was taken. "My name is Colin Creevey, and I'm from Gryffindor like you." Colin introduced himself enthusiastically. "Hello, Colin. Nice to meet you." Harry responded with a smile. However, their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion. An old owl rushed into the hall like a cannonball, attracting everyone's attention. Rowling took a closer look and immediately recognized that the owl was from the Weasley family. There was no way, because it looked so unique with messy feathers and tired eyes, it looked like it had experienced vicissitudes of life. At this moment, Ron looked at the howling letter in front of him, his face turned pale and full of fear, as if he was holding a bomb in his hand that would explode at any time, and he did not dare to reach out to open it. Seeing this, Neville on the side kindly reminded, "I think you'd better open it quickly. Last time my grandmother sent me a howler letter, and I didn't dare to open it at the time. As a result, the consequences were simply unimaginable." Hearing this, Ron couldn't help but shudder, but finally he plucked up the courage and slowly tore open the envelope with trembling hands. "Ron Weasley, you are such an ignorant fellow, you actually dared to steal a car without permission. I am so mad at you. Do you know that because of your reckless behavior, your father now has to face a severe investigation by the Ministry of Magic? All of this is due to you. If it happens again, I will immediately catch you home and teach you a lesson." The roaring letter contained Mrs. Weasley's furious roar, which was deafening, as if the whole world could feel her anger. "Oh, my dear Ginny, congratulations! It's great that you've been selected for Gryffindor House. Dad and I are so proud of you." Mrs. Weasley's ecstatic cheers were then heard in the letter. Rowling walked briskly into the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom in the afternoon. As soon as he stepped into the classroom, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. The classroom was full of Lockhart's selfies, the number of which was jaw-dropping. Not only that, but behind the podium was a huge picture of Lockhart, whose narcissism was beyond imagination. "This is too narcissistic." Rowling couldn't help but mutter. At this moment, a sound of footsteps came from far away. It turned out that Lockhart was walking down the stairs slowly. He kept muttering to himself and introducing himself to the students. "Please allow me to introduce myself briefly. I am your new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. I am the famous Gilderoy Lockhart, the holder of the 3rd Class Order of Merlin, honorary member of the Anti-Dark Arts League and many other honors. Moreover, I have won the Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award for 5 consecutive times. But I don't want to mention these things, I don't rely on my charming smile to exorcise monsters." After saying that, he did not forget to show a smile that he thought was very handsome. However, the innocent little witches in the audience had already been fascinated by him, and each of them had an intoxicated look on their faces. Harry and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. "A bunch of idiots, are you as handsome as me?" Llewellyn looked at them with contempt. Chapter 75. King of Thunder and Lightning. "Wow, I guess you all bought my entire set of books, right? Haha, that's great. In that case, let's do a little quiz together today. This test is actually to test how much you understand about the contents of these books and how many of them you have read," Lockhart said loudly, waving the test paper in his hand with a smile on his face. "Okay, everyone, you have a full 30 minutes to answer the questions, so now, let's officially begin." As soon as he finished speaking, a slight commotion was heard in the classroom. "Oh my god, these are all weird questions about him." Ron widened his eyes and muttered in disbelief. Half an hour later. "Oh, almost none of you remember, my favorite color is lavender, of course, except Mr. Rowling and Miss Hermione Granger." Lockhart muttered to himself as he carefully flipped through the question and answer papers handed in by the students. Hearing this, Harry and Ron turned their heads at the same time and looked at Rowling with extremely shocked eyes. And Rowling explained with a wry smile, "In the boring after-school time, you always have to find some books to kill time, right?" After saying that, he gave the two of them a meaningful smile. At this moment, Lockhart suddenly stood up and, with his wand in hand, struck the iron cage beside him, which was tightly covered by a curtain. "Now, please pay attention, I have been tasked with teaching you how to deal with the most disgusting monsters in the wizarding world. You are about to face your deepest fears. But don't worry, as long as I am here, I will protect you. Remember, don't scream loudly, otherwise you will anger these terrifying creatures." Lockhart suddenly threatened in a stern voice, and then suddenly pulled open the curtain covering the iron cage without any warning. Instantly, everyone was stunned. It turned out that the iron cage was densely packed with a group of Cornish elves, only 8 inches tall, with indigo bodies. They were born with a pair of huge ears and a pair of big round eyes, but their limbs were thin and short. At this moment, this group of elves kept making strange chee-chee sounds, which were sharp and piercing, as if they could pierce people's eardrums. Rowling knew what was inside the cage without even having to take a look. After all, this was one of Neville Longbottom's classic scenes. Poor Neville was hung on the chandelier by these insidious elves. And the so-called omnipotent Lockhart ran away without saying a word. This guy's face is thicker than the city wall, unparalleled in the world. Lockhart glanced at the group of young wizards below, who were laughing and showing no fear at all. So, he pulled open the door of the extremely sturdy iron cage without hesitation. Just laugh out loud, my lovely little wizards. You know, these little guys are notoriously naughty and mischievous. Let's see how you can deal with them. As Lockhart finished speaking, there was a loud noise, and a large group of elves rushed out like a tide. They bared their teeth and claws, acted recklessly, and began to destroy everywhere crazily. The little wizards who were originally calm and composed were now frightened and panicked, and they all ran away. However, Lockhart still stood there, with a gloating expression on his face, and continued to shout loudly. Act quickly, little wizards. Don't dawdle, they are just insignificant elves. But who knew that the situation had become increasingly difficult to control? Seeing the situation gradually getting out of control, Lockhart finally realized the seriousness of the problem. He quickly reached into his arms and took out his wand, trying to cast magic to subdue these naughty elves. But something unexpected happened. One of the clever elves pounced on Lockhart's wand at lightning speed and successfully snatched it away. In an instant, Lockhart knew that something was wrong. Then, as if he came to his senses, he turned around and ran away without saying a word, escaping the classroom. After Rowling saw Lockhart's embarrassed escape, his face showed extreme contempt. Suddenly, two more elves pounced on poor Neville Longbottom, grabbed his ears tightly, and tried to lift him up. Llewellyn knew it was his turn to take action. In the next moment, countless dazzling lightning flashes suddenly appeared around Llewellyn's body, and moved around his body like a nimble silver snake. At the same time, Llewellyn's eyes also flashed with sharp lightning, as if containing endless power. It turned out that this was exactly what Llewellyn had just realized about the use of the Clow cards, integrating the vast power of the Clow cards into himself, thus transforming himself into the King of Thunder and Lightning. At this moment, the endless and surging power of thunder and lightning gushed out of Llewellyn's body and spread in all directions. Seeing this scene, the young wizards around were all stunned. Then, Rowling did not hesitate to use thunder. I saw arcs of electricity like a dragon emerging from the sea, swiftly swimming over the bodies of each elf. In the blink of an eye, these elves seemed to be connected together. All the elves were hit by the electric current, their bodies paralyzed and powerless, they could only watch themselves falling from mid-air. Thank you, Rowling. Neville Longbottom's face was full of gratitude, and his voice contained a hint of grievance, yet was full of sincerity and earnestness. Wow, Rowling is so cool. Ron, who was standing by, was so excited that he couldn't wait to get closer. Even Draco and Harry couldn't help but show their deep envy for Rowling. Look, those elves seem to have fainted. Ron said, pointing at the elves on the ground. Everyone gathered around and carefully observed these little elves. They closed their eyes tightly and lay motionless on the ground. This is unbelievable, Rowling, can you believe it? Filch, that annoying guy, actually mastered magic. Ron and I saw him proudly using magic to clean the house. Harry said excitedly, his mouth full of food. At this time, they were sitting in the spacious and lively hall of Hogwarts for lunch. Rowling listened with great interest and couldn't help but exclaimed, wow, this is amazing news. But speaking of which, Harry, I heard that you will start Quidditch training in the afternoon. Are you looking forward to it? He asked with pretended curiosity. Well, yes, Rowling. But Ron and I have other tasks tonight. We have to go to the professor's offices to help. Also, this time it's Professor Lockhart's turn. Sigh. It gives me a headache just thinking about it. Harry complained helplessly, seemingly dissatisfied with the arrangement. What about you, Llewellyn? Any plans? Hearing this, Llewellyn began to think secretly. He thought, it seems that I need to add some spice to my dull campus life. I can't handle it alone. Maybe I can find a few partners to act together. So he replied with a smile, oh, me, I plan to talk to George and Fred. A great idea has come to my mind recently, and I must discuss it with them. After saying that, his eyes flashed with a mysterious light.